usually after kind of junior year state meets and all that kind of stuff finish up, then we start to reach out. I mean, we have a set kind of general standards that we need. So, I mean, that's more so for kind of the masses that email saying, hey, we're interested in your program, all this kind of stuff. Okay, you're, off our standards, or we're not going to have a spot available or can't keep one, so on and so forth. We have about 170 athletes at any given point across all the event areas. So it's a big group, but the better and better the team has gotten. Both teams are ranked top 5 right now in Division II. It's certainly harder and harder to not hold true to those standards, I guess, that we have. Now, there's certainly in high school world, especially in track, I think there's a whole population of people that, they might run something close to the standard, but, they're from a tiny little high school with no coaching, or, there's some glaring technical issue that once it's fixed, they can flourish, or, training age, especially up in the Midwest, training age, I mean, seasons are maybe only 12, 14, 16 weeks long. So, you're talking, if you're doing a sport before basketball right into track, your training age for track after 4 years of high school might only be like 1 calendar year, so, so certainly we're trying to get the best high school kids that we can. And at the national level, it's pretty hard to find a high school kid that can step in right away and have a big impact at the national level. And so that's where sometimes it does take, a year or two for them to feel that out and to see that. At the conference level, obviously, they can have a big impact for us. But, the transfer stuff is more recruiting what's already kind of been done. They've already proven they can do this. Or same things apply, though, like if they're from a small JUCO that, maybe doesn't have the coaching staff or facilities or anything like that. The 4-year JUCO or the 4-year transfers are, usually something, they even want to go to a bigger setup or something quite fitting at the previous school, or it could be academically related, whatever. But again, I mean, I think we hold a little bit higher standard for, the transfer type athlete that has to be at a level that, hey, we think, you can be a top conference kid or a top national level kid. Where the high school folks, it's okay, we'll give you some time here, help get used to it and kind of adjust. And then, we don't deal with too many transfers out. We have a lot of transfers in, but, that's just kind of the nature of a bigger state school as well, with, a lot of academic options and, program success. So, yeah, that's just kind of the bird's eye view of it, I guess. But
yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense. It's something that obviously that affects all the sports, but it's certainly like when you can a sport where you can actually, just like football, like you look at their production, you can look at basketball, you can look at their production, track, you look at their production, baseball, you can look at their production and go, okay, they'll probably fit here. You know what I mean? Right. Like right away.
And it has less to do with, sometimes I guess in football, we have a decent amount of football track guys have over. And, I think in football, it's more so, hey, you might look great on film, but hey, who you're playing or small teams that you're, whatever it is. Whereas track, it's just, you could be from a tiny school, big school, whatever. If you run this time, you run the time. As long as, fully automatic and you got wind readings and all that kind of stuff, so it's not completely blown out of the water. But that's become a little bit more streamlined in this day and age versus, when I was coming up, you still have people kind of manually timing meets, and it's not really a thing anymore. So a little bit easier in the track world. But there's also less time I have to ever really spend on the road, too. It's a lot of film, send me your times. But again, a lot of the times when you're a high school kid, we're going to reach out to them as well. And there's not too many that slip through the cracks and then they message us like, who is this person? I've never heard of them, because you're checking results and you're looking at lists.
You're checking results. Yeah, I think that's a big difference. That is a big difference because you can just check the results. You have those 2 or 3 hubs that have all the results, right? So you can just check the results and sort it and get all the guys that you want and be like, that is that does streamline it a lot, and that makes it unique. I'm sure tracks like swimming, and from that standpoint, right? You get these numbers. This is what the numbers are. And this, pretty much what it is. All right, so I want to dive into speed developments, obviously, since that's what one of the things that you really do.
Yeah,
and there's so much stuff like, and like I'm in these deep dark holes all the time. And we have so many guys on with our podcast that are speed development guys, track coaches. So you might even know some of the names like Corfist and Tony Holler, and We've
Yep,
had them
yep.
all on, and they all. I mean, everybody in a certain aspect, obviously, everybody's in agreement. You want to run fast, you got to be doing things fast. You got to have a certain level of rest and get maximal output, to a certain extent, right? Like that's the kind of base core. And then obviously, in track, you're doing rank, record, publish because you're racing. So,
Yep.
talk about some of the fundamental things that you think can start to really develop speed in an athlete. And obviously, you're getting athletes that are, to a certain extent, pretty good from the get-go, but you're looking to, squeeze out hundreds in cases that will make all the difference between first and eighth. You know what I mean? And so,
Yep.
talk about that part and what are some of the core fundamental things that you see, and then we can dive into kind of the refinement stuff.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit of a stark difference between, I wouldn't even say stark difference. It's just, the high school versus college. I think no matter what level, there's great coaches, there's mediocre coaches, and then there's, poor coaches at any level.
Right.
And, sometimes, you might just be at a big school and doing some crazy stuff that, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but you got a ton of kids and some rise to the top and so on and so forth. So I mean, I think in high school when you have very developmental years, I think it's really important to make sure that you kind of have a more wide-ranged type program. But certainly, where the Tony Hollers of the world that come through, it's, in the colder climates, you might only have a hallway and all that kind of stuff. It makes a lot of sense to do more of just the short sprinting type stuff and not try to, shovel off tracks and do all that kind of stuff, just to run some tempo and whatnot. But I would say my general mindset, there's kind of the 5 biomotor abilities. So speed, strength, endurance, flexibility, and coordination. I think of them as kind of dimmer switches. So whatever you're doing, whether it's just a warm up or an actual workout or, just going to the gym and doing whatever, like the dimmer switches are all on in some capacity. If you're sprinting, obviously speed and strength will certainly be higher. But obviously it takes a great deal of coordination and flexibility to be at a high level or a high level sprinter as well. Technically, it takes quite a bit of coordination. So I think if you, first of all, just kind of think every practice that you have, a warm up, a workout, whatever phase we're in, so on and so forth, those 5 biomotor abilities should be present, whether it's in your week or your month or your day. And from there, then I think it's, we're a program that's going to do acceleration and higher intensity type stuff early on. We're certainly not going to do just, phases and phases of this quote base work. I think I build things concurrently, so I can build the neuromuscular system and sprint and do all this and build inter and intra muscle coordination and all these great things. But then I can also build the aerobic system through, sometimes longer warm-ups or just pointed tempo type workouts, specific endurances, so on and so forth. When I think then you think 5 biomotor abilities, then you have the energy systems. Yes, we're going to spend a majority of our time in, the CNS type work when we're talking about sprinting, which is, again, the ATP CP system and glycolysis and all these things. So you have to understand the sciences. But I think foundationally what a lot of speed development comes down to is actually teaching movements, why we want certain movements, why we want the body in certain positions, and give the athletes somewhat of a roadmap of, okay, to be faster, you have to put more force in the ground. How do you put more force on the ground? You need to be in better positions technically. Why do we want to be in these positions, and how do we manage those over time? So whether or not you're doing a 2-point start or a 3-point start or a block start, we're looking at hip height, shin angles, so on and so forth, angles of projection. So I think a lot of it is just exposing the athletes to understanding what we're trying to do initially. I think where a lot of people go wrong is, hey, we're going to do speed work, we're going to sprint. Okay, cool. What are the distances? What are the times that we're trying to hit? What are the rest ratios, so on and so forth, to be in this category? Okay, great. You have all those checked off. Now let's just have your kids sprint through, but they're doing it just technically terrible. So it's like we're kind of scratching the surface of speed work, sure, but we're not really actually focused on developing speed if we're not focused on technical. Velocity itself is just kind of 2 numbers, stride length and stride frequency. So how much ground we're covering with each stride, and then how many steps per second we're taking matter greatly. So if you have somebody that's kind of running or sprinting with, anterior pelvic tilt and everything's kicking out the back and all this other stuff, not only is your frequency down, but your length is short, so
Right.
if we would just fix them technically and get them to be a little bit more upright and tall, have a little bit more front side mechanics, put a little bit more force into the ground, so on and so forth, stride length will improve, stride frequency will improve. Those numbers multiplied by each other is literally your velocity in meters per second. So I guess no matter what, instead of just doing a ton of mindless sprinting, I first teach the warm-up. I teach positions. I teach basic sciences to the kids as far as, biomechanics and why physics matter.
That's awesome.
Because if we can fix technical issues, kind of the root cause, all the symptoms later on, and, I guess if you fix the cause of it, all the symptoms will fix themselves. So if we fix technique first and focus on that, we'll deal with a lot less issues down the road, and then we'll get a much higher peak. So even if I get a kid that's from the portal, they're very good, there's still things, no matter what, technically, that we need to look at and make sure that we check those boxes. We can do that just through video review or testing or, whatever. There's a whole gamut of things you can do, but it depends on what level they're coming in at. But even if you have the top Power 5 kid coming into your program, there's always something we can address. And it's not just mindless sprinting. So even the folks that, kind of do all the rank, publish and record and all that kind of stuff, I think there's been a bit of a mindset shift with that as well. That technique is also very important. A decade ago when that started kind of coming in, it was like, okay, you're doing all this stuff, but technically we're not doing anything right. It'd be like if you're shooting a free throw and you're shooting it with two hands, or you have a quarterback that's throwing underhand, it'd be like, well, obviously you would fix those things. But in sprinting, a lot of the times you see some kids sprint and you're like, oh, that's just kind of how they sprint. And it's like, well, no, like it's a skill that we can fix,
Right.
Coach, quick coming when you get most of your athletes, right? Like, whatever, however they come in, is that eye-opening to see how many of them really need to be tightened up in the world of technique and how they run and all of those kind of things? Like, is that obviously, I always equivalent, like, hey, you can't build a house without a really good foundation, right? So even for me as a high school football coach, like, we're going to start every single year with the most basic of basic tech, stance start, like things that I call it coaching in crayon, right? Like I want to start there so that, look, I know this guy can do it, or I don't know if this guy can do it, but we're all going to start at that same point A technique wise, so that one, like they get that foundation to build on. Two, I know they're all going to do it the way that I'm expecting them to do it. And the standard is there because we know that there's a million ways to do it right, correct. You know what I mean? Like so many guys they're now so influenced by so many of these quote trainers in any sport, right? They're everywhere, right? There's social media guys, they go to this guy, they develop habits that become the norm. How, like, when you get those guys in, is it, and they, now you take them back to this, hey, here's the baseline of what we're going to do. Right. Is that eye opening to you about how many of those guys? It's like, wow, he got to this point doing it this way. Let's clean some of this other stuff up. Like, wow, that ceiling can really go to a whole different. I mean, it has to be eye opening. That's some of these guys that come in here.
Well, and again, in a perfect world, we want everybody to come in and just clearly be technically sound and so on and so forth. But I think a lot of even track recruiting is, finding the kids that aren't technically very good, but still are performing well, because then it's, hey, if we spend some time fixing this, then, your ceiling can probably, get much higher. We can get to a much higher level. So, and I don't think it's often a fault to any high school track coaches necessarily.
No, not where I wanted to go with it, because look, we all know, like, look,
no,
the track 100%. Coach might actually know track or whatever, or
right.
The assistants are just another guy in the building, or you know what I mean?
Chaotic.
Like,
I think it's a little bit more chaotic in the high school world, and I think also club track has taken off quite a bit more too, especially in the bigger metro areas. We have a couple of alums that came back to the Twin Cities, and they have some of the bigger clubs now, and we've done a lot of recruiting out of Milwaukee, which has a strong history of clubs. And, I think sometimes you maybe expose yourself to the club setup just because it might be a smaller group. You might get a little bit more time, but it's also just you're in the off season of the high school season. So you're just getting more time in the sport as well. I think social media can be a decent place, as long as you're sifting it out.
You got to do some homework.
Good sources out there, but there's people with 500-some-thousand followers that everything they post, it's like, what is this?
Yeah. Well, that's why they have that, right? Because people want the chaos, they want the clickbait, right? They're willing to look at that kind of stuff,
right? So they're just looking for an answer without kind of understanding it, and that's probably the one thing. I'm pretty active on social media, and it's. You post something and your DMs just kind of fills up with anything hurtling wise. Like, well, what's the spacing? What's the spacing for these hurdles? And it's like, my answer is usually like, it can be whatever it needs to be to get what you're trying to get, right. You want more horizontal projection. If you want more vertical, just to focus on technical stuff. So you have more time in the air to just focus on stuff. Like, there's plenty of things that you can adjust, and, you're not necessarily just having a drill in a vacuum as far as like it has to be this exact setup. There's always going to be a bandwidth of what you can do with a singular drill. So I think in the development world, though, there's foundational positions, and there is just kind of things you must do and be able to do to then find success in any other event in track. I don't think you're going to be, a phenomenal receiver if you can't sprint well, in the sport of football. And it's always kind of funny too when you see a high level football player that technically they're running terrible, if they're running, they're on a, they shot through the hole, they're running 80 yards for a touchdown, and it's just, man, their form breaks down 40 yards down the field. It's, wow, but then you see somebody that technically sprints well, and it's like, okay, maybe they have a little bit of a track background. So I guess that, McCaffrey's kind of the one person that everybody talks about because he does a lot of track-based training, I would say, where he spends more time technically sprinting. But I guess to go back to your original question, it's just there's things that we have to be able to check the box that we can do. And those are kind of the pillars of where we then can go to. So we spend, it only takes one practice and doing a warm-up, like a kind of more of a pointed sprint drill type warm-up, to tell kind of what your issues are, and sometimes it's just a coordination thing and we just need to do it more often. And, we might be doing this warm up or a type of warm up like this every third day or every second day or whatever. So over the course of a 37-week season, we're going to find success no matter what. And sometimes it's just an understanding. I mean, I've certainly had kids come in that it's like, hey, we're really like backside here. We're not pushing well here. We need to be more upright and tall. And they're like, oh, okay. And then they go do it. And it's like, okay, just nobody told you to do that, or
yeah. It's literally that simple, right?
Yeah,
it's
like somebody never
awareness.
told you this, or and you see that a lot in hurtling, just with some basic technique stuff. Of a lead arm
just never been coached to do it. Like
they've just never been told about it. And so again, I think it doesn't take much, and it is eye-opening at times, but you also just assume. Well, you're pleasantly surprised, I guess, if a high school kid comes in, you're like, okay, sweet, you can do all this stuff, And if so, then probably a pretty good athlete, or maybe we're a three-sport athlete, and they kind of just have some body awareness and general coordination, and they've had time developing that. But in sprinting, I think you can find some diamonds in the rough as far as just, genetically they have great fiber counts and fiber types and all this kind of stuff. They just have no idea what they're doing, or they've never been exposed to the sport. So so some kids, they, get incrementally better each year. Some people blow up one year and then just kind of, stay the same. Some people just get way better each year. It's just, everybody's a little bit different, but I don't think you should approach it any different as far as preaching technique and sprinting correctly from the get-go, no matter who you are. But it's my opinion.
Yeah. When you talk about like forcing to the ground and turnover, right? So a couple things that come to mind. So landing position in order to generate force into the ground, and then obviously being able to, like, so for example, Usain Bolt, everyone's always like, oh, you got to turn your legs over, Then obviously Usain Bolt turns his legs over very fast for a guy his height, right? But because he's taller and he has an extremely fast turnover rate for his height, he's able to be the fastest guy in the world. But he's also generating more force, and so he actually stayed on the ground when he tested longer than the other sprinters, right? So what is the balance between like the force generating, like what is the optimal, like, landing position for them? Because there's so much stuff on that, like, that I think throws coaches, especially if you're like a high school coach and you're like, oh, or you're a football coach and you're trying to develop some level of speed, or even a track coach, right? And you watch this guy or that guy and this guy, and they talk about all these different things from a landing standpoint, where your feet should be. Like I'm very kind of against, like I hear some guys say like, oh, this is how every world-class sprinter's feet are when they run. And it's not really, most sprinters are not going to be world-class sprinters, right? And so you're trying to generate the most force and turnover, right, and stride length for their particular body, right? So and so that might be a 10-3, right, for one guy, and an Olympian obviously is able to do certain things differently than that 10-3 guy, and a 10-3 guy is going to be able to do certain things differently than a 10-9 high school guy, right? So can you talk a little bit about that and maybe clear up some of your thoughts from that standpoint?
Yeah, no, and it's interesting. I just had a conversation with a head football coach yesterday about starting positions for, they do a tested 20 Excel test or, just a 40-yard dash or whatever. And using football as a prime example, I think, you have to set it up like this no matter what. And then you see some kid with their foot right on the line, their hands right by their foot, and it's like shin angle straight up into the sky. It's like, well, if you put force down into the ground through your shin, where you going? You're going straight up,
Right.
Because the force just travels through that angle. It's Newton's third law. You get it back in the same angle. So, I've been preaching for a long time. I mean, in track, it's different. I mean, when you have blocks, you're 2 1/4, 3 1/4 steps back on the pads and all this, like you're much further back. We're trying to see certain things. The 40 is definitely more frequency based because it's short, so,
right.
But you still need to be in a position to project and cover ground off that first step, because just turning your feet over really fast doesn't make you go fast necessarily. So, and I guess the idea of like, you'd mentioned a race, a 10-3 race, 10-3 can look a lot different depending on who you are. You could get the same outcome, but if you got a Usain Bolt who's 6'5", 6'6" versus Christian Coleman, who's probably 5'8", it's going to look a lot different. And so that's why I don't, I see on social media all the time, like these gurus of the 40, this and that. And it's like, talking about step counts and like you want to get your step count lower or step count higher or whatever it is. It's like, well, this could totally change if you have a 6'9" lineman versus a 5'10" or a 5'6" running back or something, So it's like, you can't approach. In the track world, at least, in sprinting in general, there's the two metrics, stride length and stride frequency. Each person has a range of stride length based off their leg length. So you can, like all my kids, we have all their leg lengths, their greater trochanter length. So from the bony part on the outside of the femur down to the ground in centimeters, there's a multiplier. You can get a range. So, Usain Bolt, when he ran his fastest times, he was covering 2.7 to 2.75 meters with each stride, where Christian Coleman's just over 2, but
right.
If you look at Ralph Mann's research, kind of the main biomechanist over the years, and now Ken Clark is another one kind of taking that over for USA Track and Field, getting frequency as close to 5 steps per second, that's kind of the golden standard, sure. But, Usain Bolt was in the 4.3, 4.4 range as far as steps per second. And, from a general consensus, it's like, well, that's really low, but it's obvious because he's got really long legs.
Right.
But if you take 4.3 and 2.75 and multiply those by each other, that's in the high 11, 12 range for meters per second. So there would be no way he could get close to 5 steps per second, because to do that, you'd have to shorten your strides, and you'd have to shorten them so much that, okay, cool, you hit 5 steps per second, but now you're covering 2 meters per stride, and now you're at 10 meters per second. So that wouldn't make any sense. So it's the idea too, like if you tell a kid to go do single leg bounding, bounding right to left, and I want you to cover a ton of ground. Okay, what do? You see longer stride lengths, But what slows down? The frequency slows down because they're covering ground and they're kind of taking that flight and so on and so forth. That's why we would never tell a kid to bound 100 meters in a
Right.
race. You wouldn't run very fast. So I guess it's more just like standardizing like benchmarks of what you want to see. So I think without getting too far into it, there's also, I guess, like generally we're trying to get the shins in an angle of where we're trying to get to, you know. So if we're setting up a stance for a 3-point or a block start or whatever, we want to see them roughly in a 45 to 50 degree angle matching with each other. So that's why we would set the feet up like that. So again, if you use that example of, you know, some of these 40 kids that I've seen and they put their foot right on the line, now it takes them 0.0, you know, or maybe 0.10 to 0.0 something for their shin to roll down to that angle and to push off. Now you just wasted time rolling through that and then pushing where you could just get in the position from the get-go.
Right.
Yep.
And so that would be, and we're going to have a longer conversation about it. And I already pulled up some film of, you know, Xavier Worthy's 421, but then Kellen, a sprinter from Iowa, ran 415 at one of their games as like a halftime stunt.
Yeah, had like promo.
Kellen Walker,
Kalen
Walker,
yeah.
sorry. And Christian Coleman has ran 410 or something with, I don't know, it was like an old sports science show or something like that, where they had him run out and do all this kind of stuff. So, I guess without getting too far into it, there's just some standardized positions that we want to try to get into because, you know, the sciences are cruel mistresses. Like we can't just say, oh, I do it like this. It's like, well, you're not defeating physics, you know, and like your body still has to follow the laws of biomechanics and all this other stuff, you know? So I think it's educating more so of like what we're trying to actually do here versus, oh, this is how it's been done in our culture forever. Like, I still don't understand why we have football coaches hand timing 40s. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Zero.
You're going to be so far off if you talk about one person to the other, you know?
Yes.
And you know, you get everybody.
It's always interesting because they just put 5 guys at the end of it, and hey, I got this, I got that, I got this, I got that. Okay, where do we go? Here we go. Give him this.
Well, I had him at 4.2. I had him at 4.4. Well, what is he then? You know?
Oh, he's a 4.3. Right here we go.
And now that the lasers are so much better than they were, like, so originally they were not super accurate. You know, obviously a track race is the most accurate with the gun and that's the most accurate. But now they're so much more accurate, which is why it makes no sense not to do it now because you can just get a standard time across everybody.
And,
so
you know, the Brower timing or the OV, whatever that the new one came
OVR.
Out. Yeah, the OVR. The Brower to me has been the tried and true, the one they've used at the combine for a long, long time. You know, but there's also the dasher. There's the free lap's fine for like the straightaway stuff, but kind of the ones where you break a plane, like the Brower system or the OVRs.
Right.
You know, but now you can take a $10 phone app and do the same thing. Like you can just start a timer and scroll through. So it's like I just don't think there's any reason to do any sort of manual timing anymore. But that's, you know, a little bit of a soapbox. I just, you know, you get a lot of kids, even I coach track. I get a lot of football guys sending me huddle film and all this kind of stuff and saying they ran 4.3 and all this. It's like, okay, first of all, I'm not your coach or not a football coach, but
which is hilarious too, coach, because I see it a lot. It's really kind of funny. It really is. Like, and look, even Dave and I get these things like, you know, guys send us more huddle tape, like thinking that we're at like college coaches. We still get invited to showcases and combines and college camps too, because we're, you know, whatever. But so it's kind of funny that world, guys just blindly follow a squirrel. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like,
I'll watch your film, but I'll probably say, yeah, it looks good. Yeah, I don't know. Like,
yeah.
That's what I'm looking for either, you know?
That's awesome.
So yeah. So I guess when you look at that kind of stuff, as far as just there's the track world, if you read any of like just the standardized kind of curriculums from the Coach's Ed or, you know, any of the biomechanical books and all this, there's kind of positions we want to be in. There's always bandwidth of that for different developing levels, sure, but you know, if you want to strike slightly out in front of the center of mass or slightly out in front of your hips, whether or not you're just starting track or you're an elite, you still want to get into a similar position, you know? And if you're standing tall with your hips neutral and all is good, and then you just lift up your thigh and you get in that kind of standard A position, that's the position that we want to be looking like when we're sprinting. Sure, there's many things that can cause you to not be in that situation, but whether or not you just started or you're advanced, that's still the same kind of standardized look of what we're looking at, because, you know, biomechanics and just research has taught us that that makes the most sense. Now, again, ground contact times, elites are going to be at 0.08 seconds. From touchdown to toe off on any sort of a strike, you know, developmental kids might be 0.10 something or 0.11, 0.12. And it's like, what will help with that over time is better technical positions. Yes, so you're spending less time technically on the ground or in a better position. But again, it's just the stronger the athlete becomes, generally speaking, the more force they can produce. Rate of force development matters. Rate coding, how you can send the messages faster and faster, how you can get your turnover, yes. But again, if I just stand in place and turn my feet over as fast as I can, be like, oh, great, but I'm not going anywhere. So the length part equally matters, you know? So again, I'll go out to practice today, and there's certain kids I know that, okay, this person always needs to turn it over more, and this person always needs to try to cover more ground. Usually that has something to do with heights of the athlete as well. If I have a 6-foot female athlete versus the 5-foot female athlete, they're going to have different needs as far as what they have to do specifically to get faster. You don't cue them the same way as, okay, 6-foot athlete, you have to turn it over faster, because the 5-foot athletes defaulted to turning it over because they have shorter limbs, so they can turn it over. So that person probably needs to cover more ground, which is the advantage of the tall person. And so that's why it just gets to this world where it's not one size fits all, unless you're talking about starting position when we're trying to get those angles, you know?
Right, shin angles, right? They have to be at a certain angle in order to have the most
So there's
success.
always going to be a bandwidth of any metric.
Right.
But I think there's a huge range of technical differences that we're trying to teach, whether it's developmental or elite, but we're just understanding of what range we're in within that kind of bandwidth of performances, you know?
Do tools like, I don't know if you have like a 1080 machine or a T Apex.
I have an Apex. Yep.
You have an Apex. Okay. So, talk about how you use that. Cause people, I get asked this, even my sons are youth athletes, and but like I'm in an area where a lot of people are pretty driven. So
Sure.
as I am, and I have a track background. You know, I was a really good track athlete in high school, and I played football in college. My father's still a track coach to this day at 85. So it's but you know, the T Apex. So people, you know, again, just like you go on videos, you see all these people using it for these kind of things.
Yeah.
I'm most curious, like between overspeed, variable resistance, and like normal regular resistance, like where do you see the most help on something like that? And then can they replicate that without a T Apex machine?
Sure. Yeah. No, and resistance sprinting is great. There's a lot of ways to do it. I mean, we have we're built on top of a hill here campus wise, so we definitely do some shorter excels up on the hills, sleds. You can obviously get into like the Apex and the 1080 world and all that. You know, I think there's obviously a training effect, the resisted portion of it, and there's, you know, all sorts of research, whether it's got to be heavy loaded or, you know, light loading and all this, but it's kind of what you're trying to get. You know, usually those resisted runs are going to affect you in acceleration the first 10 to 20 meters. After that, it won't have a massive impact, because then we're going a little bit more non-volitional, like that kind of stuff, taller positions and just better positions here. But overcoming inertia, creating momentum, all of that, there's certainly merit to it. So I would say on the masses, like we do sled pulling, we'll do partner band pulling, we'll do the hill runs, we'll do stadium stairs where you're skipping multiple stairs. That's more of acceleration because you're opening up that stride. You're at an angle where if you hit every little step as fast as you can going up, that might be more upright tall position. So there's different ways to do it. The Apex is nice strictly from a like diagnostic tool, I would say. Like we'll have some kids that, you know, maybe once they get into the block position, they as well, or they think too frequency based in the start. So the Apex has been nice, and I will be honest, I just got it about 3 weeks ago.
Right.
Got it sent to me free of cost, so I didn't have to really invest in it and get to try it out.
So that's always a bonus.
Yeah, it's always a bonus. And so it's
Okay, so how did you maneuver that,
because,
first of
you
all?
can really dial in.
How'd you maneuver getting that one for free?
I talked to the right people. I'll put it that way.
There you
There
go.
you go.
There you go.
That's
I
it.
talked to the right people about the right things, and it was suggested that I should get one sent to me, and it showed up at my door 3 weeks later. So it worked out pretty well.
Beautiful.
So it is cool though, because you can be a little bit more just dialed in with it. I mean, you can go to the specific setting. I want this many kilograms or this many pounds of resistance. Again, I can do heavier stuff for more, hey, the first 10 meters, but I can do lighter stuff for more like kind of in the track world, more late acceleration through like 20, 30, 40, where you're still trying to come up and still kind of overcome that and build to your max velocity, which will be more 50, 60 some meters down the track. You know, I'm going to eventually use some of the overspeed functions. Like, it takes a little time to get all the functionality figured out on it, but overspeed can be nice. Again, it can be controlled. You know, like, I'm from the generation where, hey, strength coach says show up at 6 a.m. Okay, we're gonna be here. We got these long elastic bands, and one person runs, and pray to God that you can hold on.
Yes, right.
You're doing overspeed, being pulled by somebody else, and it's like, well, geez, a lot of this is just braking mechanics over and over because you're just trying to stay up. And so I think it's nicer you can dial it in. Hey, I only want a very small fraction of assistance, and so the machine will dial that in and it'll do it consistently. You can also do some varying things. So it's a safer way, I would say, to do overspeed. But overspeed for me, I don't do it very often because overspeed is the icing on top of the cake, in my opinion, because if you haven't technically figured out just positions, you haven't worked acceleration or max velocity or general speed endurance type stuff, doing overspeed is a little bit of like, okay, we're trying to get to the end of the book before we've read it all, kind of a thing, overspeed can be an assistance to expose yourself to things that you can't create on your own. Yes. Just as you wouldn't start with a 4-foot high box drop, you would start with, 6 inches a foot and work your way up a progressive.
Right.
So I see some people doing overspeed, and it's like, bro, you don't even know how to sprint yet,
Right.
And so it doesn't necessarily help you, because again, then you're just contacting out way too far in front of your hips, and now it's just you're braking the whole time.
Well, it's funny. I heard Chris Corpus say, and I was like, I don't know about that, but I guess his theory was that, like, if you have the right level of overspeed where it's just enough that they're pulled at a certain, he said that he's seen that they start to self-correct some of the mechanics. But if it's too much, obviously it puts you in a position where everything falls apart.
Well, no, I mean, I would say it self-corrects in the world that, okay, now I need to recover my limb a little faster to be able to
right.
this speed. Sure. But again, that's going to be for somebody that's actually been able to sprint and do some things beforehand. It's not just for the club world. Hey, I'm going to attract somebody to my club by saying I have apexes and we do overspeed. Well, cool.
Right.
Like, on your overspeed. Yeah, that wouldn't make any sense, I guess.
Right.
And again, I would see that too, like sometimes, like just dribbling, like the dribble ankle, dribble calf, just doing some cycling things to kind of learn some positions. Sometimes, honestly, there's drills that if you try to do it a little bit quicker, you do kind of get it right, versus if you're trying to really slow it down. And because some of the things are reactive off the ground. So if you don't have that pop, it's harder to put yourself volitionally into these things. So sometimes with dribbling, it might look really weird if you're doing it kind of slow. But then, hey, let's quicken it up just a little bit, and then, oh, it's starting to take shape here, So I would be remiss to say, hey, you have technical issues, let's do overspeed and it'll fix itself. But I think there's obviously merit to that, in the fact that if you have somebody that's accomplished, okay, let's turn it up a little bit and force you to go faster. Just like in hurtling, we always use reduced spacing. I might use lower hurdles because I'm trying to get you to fly faster through this 3-step pattern to teach your body to be able to do that. Yeah, you're always trying to do that, but that's more on the upper end, I would say, of ability levels,
No, that makes a ton of sense. It's I'm sure also overspeed has to be staged to a certain extent, right? Like distance wise, like you're not
that,
you could use, getting them used to certain, 10 yards or 10 meters before you start them to, 30 meters, 25 meters. I got two more great questions. I don't know if Derek has. First thing is about I don't know if you hear any of this stuff on like fascia training. You know what I mean? The fascia, which is like tendons, the
Yep.
tendons,
Yep.
and the
Muscle coat.
correlation to
Yep.
that to speed. Like, is there anything to that? First of all, that's my, obviously you want your tendons to be stronger. I get all that. But is there
Mhm.
a correlation that could be developed? Is that really more certain level of that genetic? Is some of it, yeah, you could develop it, but it's not going to make the impact that you think it is. I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I guess, fascia is the coating around, obviously the muscles, tendons, ligaments, all that. I mean, so it's just, I think I'm sure there's merit to it. I would say in my world, though, like all of that stuff is going to be trained concurrently while you're sprinting. If you're sprinting correctly, being in better positions, like you're going to get
You're going to
loading of
get that with it.
all that. Yeah, I mean, all of that stuff will be loaded. I mean, there's certainly different things that, I've read a couple great books on just fascia kind of stretching and different ways that you can kind of help realign that fiber. It kind of get not gummed up, but it's like it can, it's like a casing on like a hot dog, like it can pull
Right.
in certain ways, sure. And so there's some different ways that we can help loosen up, but it's like, okay, we also have to hydrate. We have to do all this stuff. So I
Right.
think it's one of those things again. Oh, I'm so worried about this fascia stuff, and oh, we're doing this for fascia and blah 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 blah. It's just kind of a fun word to say when you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
just
yeah.
add as a product of a lot of other things,
Well,
dynamics.
they do these studies, right? Like, so this one guy's done this doing the study. It's getting ready to be published, where he believes that that's a bigger portion than people realize as far as from a development standpoint. And I think I think the battle that's going on, and you're probably in it to a certain extent, in definitely in the sprinting world. The strength development versus the overall speed, sprinting, tendon, being able to have that pop like development. Is there obviously there's a certain level of correlation, no doubt, between strength
Mhm.
and speed. Is there a point where it becomes unproductive or more damaging? That's what
Well,
one of the things that
I think
even at the pro level athlete, like McCaffrey, right? He's kind of right on board with that. Like, he's not a huge. I mean, he looks great. Obviously, it looks like he weightlifts all the time, but
Steph,
that's not a big. Speed and explosion is a big part of what he's doing than
well,
necessarily heavy lifting.
no, I'll say that I think there's general correlations. There's a point of, okay, strong is strong enough. Now it's more
Right.
about rate of development. So can I actually take the strength that I have and make it powerful? Power is speed and strength kind of combined.
Right.
Is,
Moving
showing
faster,
themselves on.
right? Like moving a certain
Yeah,
amount of
so
force faster, right? Yeah.
well, I think we've seen this before too. Like, we'll have some kids that have maybe transferred out because hey, some training thing doesn't work, and even though they're running well and so on and so forth, and because I think the better and better you get at track, the more it is truly like, okay, we have these sessions, we get our stimulus, we sprint, we rest, all this. They want to get into I want to feel like I'm working harder. But really it's like, okay, I could take a kid that's, got the highest fast twitch fiber type, barely train them, and they're going to be faster than the kid with slow twitch that's training really hard, So
Right.
to a certain extent, genetics is going to play a big part of that. And
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
what I think. There's no necessarily like biohacking is I'm going to turn all these slow twitch fibers into fast twitch fibers. That doesn't necessarily, you can't just straight up change them.
Right.
So it's like genetics, if you're just fast, you're going to be fast. And so like, let's not mess it up then at the same point. Like, let's not do stuff that's going to be detrimental. So, because if you get this tall, wiry, elastic, type sprinter like this, okay, the I don't remember where he's from, but the gout guy that is like
Yes.
rounds or whatever, and he's
Super elastic.
super elastic. Are you going to squat that kid like,
Right.
ass to grass every day? Like, there wouldn't be any point. But there's some people
Right.
that would say, oh, we need to get his squat up, we need to do this. And it's like that kid when he runs, he's just flipping off the ground, like he's
It's
just
unbelievable. Yeah.
and it's just a natural thing. And like, I think if you see some of our best sprinters that we've had here, those 10-0 type kids, like when they go do their, a jog, a lap or something, like they're just kind of bouncing along, and it's like, okay, why would I train this kid super long and super slow? Then there wouldn't be any sense to that. Whereas some kids that are fast, I mean, they come kind of from the other side. They're more like freight trains. It takes them a while to go in, but once they go, they can keep going, So I've had all different ranges of kids. So you have to be able to somewhat, shapeshift a little bit or just have a wider range or a wider tool to use some of those things. So I think anytime you have somebody that says, hey, this is guaranteed, or you have to do this, or you do
Yeah.
this, and blah, blah. Or they use just rogue examples, like, well, this one person,
Right.
look,
The
there's
1%, the under 1% of humans that have done
it's
this.
like
We see it a lot with football where guys compare themselves. Like,
the train a certain way. Danny Amendola or what? Not Danny Amendola. There's some other guy back in the day that trained this certain way of these certain guys that did it forever. It's like, well, why is there only two of them then? And it's like they were
right.
both.
Why, if they had the success with it, why wouldn't everybody be?
Archuleta, Adam Archuleta. You see all the Adam Archuleta stuff,
So like,
and especially recently, since that stuff's been out a lot more.
Well, right. So we're doing plyometric training and we're doing sprint
Right.
training and we're doing all these things to make ourselves more explosive. And like,
well, variable explosive stuff is. So obviously, there's a difference between developing a certain level of explosion and obviously being a 100-meter dash guy, right? And they're different. So different. Obviously, there's similar qualities, but like the ability to develop explosion and variable training to develop that stuff obviously can help over long periods of time. But I think when people, listen, you have to run to get fast, but you could do different stimuluses to try and poke the bear to get faster, right?
So,
like,
I mean, one of the best things we can do for like hamstring injuries and stuff is, okay, we get them moving, but low-level plyometrics, and can we do dribbling, and can we do things that are still explosive or still getting some sort of a CNS response, because that's going to help versus you just sitting in the training room for a month and just hoping it heals itself,
right.
So, but I think when you see crazy stuff like the people in the pool doing the Twitch training and stuff like this and all this, like, this is what you have to do to be able to get better. And it's like, well, all these people in the pool aren't very good athletes, so it's like, I don't get what we're trying to do here then, there's always going to be somebody better that does something different, so I think if you just stick to the principles of it, then you can get at all the weird stuff after as, like, again, icing on the top. But if I tried to bring like this fast Twitch training to my group, I'd get laughed out of the track. I'd be like, what do we do? They'd be like, this is the dumbest stuff ever. And I'd be like, well, I agree. Like, so why are we trying to do it? So, and I don't want to get too soapboxy here, but it's like, we try to get so far away from what truly matters because it's, again, a social media thing. I can get more likes.
It's clickbait. Yep.
Yeah. So it's like, we have to know that there might be merit to this, sure, but we don't start at these things, and there's certain people that are doing all these like different things with ropes and blah, 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 and all this. It's like, okay, but can you get into actual technical positions that make sense? And can we repeat these positions over and over again? Are we getting more coordinated? And then we can worry about this stuff later. It frustrates me when it's like, a kid might transfer and say, oh, I just didn't feel like we were doing enough. And then, in the fall, they're just running a bunch of long, slow stuff, squatting the house and doing all this, and then they don't get any faster. It's like, well, you got your wish, like doing more stuff, but did you get any faster? Like, I don't.
Right.
So what was the point of all of it? Like, just doing the work is not necessarily going to give you results if you're not doing it correctly.
Right, because you got to have a certain level of maximal effort to change, to start to get changes that neurologically will help you to get faster.
Yeah, I just think coordination is the number one thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And Coach, are you under the, when it comes to your athletes, right? One of the questions I have is obviously at what age, right? And you're dealing with college, so that's a little different in the maturity aspect of it. How young is too young, right? When it comes to the level of technicality, right? Can you teach a middle school kid some of these things in terms of technique? Because look, the best thing is, you're looking at middle school kids and when they're running around, you're like, oh, that one looks like they can run, but this one's over here. They're dealing with like, puberty, and now they're in the third shoe size within 3 months. So you understand some of that, but how technical can you get in terms of this is something that's really going to stick with them and it's going to help them and benefit them?
Yeah. I mean, I'm by no means an elite mind in like the youth world. But I have a 6-year-old son, and, I think one of the best things that he does, he loves riding his bike. He loves crushing on his bike. He likes rock climbing. He likes things that, are just generally going to, I guess it's more play based, I guess,
right.
It's like, been fun to see him.
He developed the rotational engine, right? The rotational engine of the body,
and just,
right?
Just overall body movement, right?
Well, and every time we go to the gym or every time we go to, go climbing, he gets higher up the wall. He gets more confidence, all that kind of stuff. So I think as a Phi Ed guy, there's plenty of things. We were teaching coordination, just basic level skipping to kindergartners. Step
Yeah.
hop, step hop. I mean, it's just
Fucking
them
jumping
understanding
jacks.
a little
I mean,
bit
shit.
more about, yeah, I mean, awareness of their body, but it can be play based. Like, it doesn't have to be, okay, we're going to get in our lines, we're going to do all these.
Yeah. No. And look, if there's one thing we've learned as the younger the ages we get it, the more you have to make it play based or competition based or something. Like, we're not lining up doing sprints where, it's a relay race or it's, what I mean? There's got to be some type of play to it, right? Look, shit, even my high school guys, dude, like you put it in a competition base, like, dude, they're just going to run faster. It just kind of is what it is.
No, for sure. And I think there's something certainly to that. I think in the youth world, gymnastics can be phenomenal. Let's just go to this cool gymnastics spot and we're going to walk.
My niece does it as a second grader and it's unbelievable to see what it's done for her strength wise, body wise, just confidence wise overall. Like, hey, I can do this now. I can do that. I mean, my 2.5-year-old worships getting on her little gymnastics mat and rolling around and just trying to figure out all those types of things. It's really done a lot for her overall development.
Because again, the young ones, like 4, 5, and 6-year-olds, they're just going to think it's cool if they can like balance on one foot. They're going to, hey, check this out, I'm balancing.
Yeah.
Like, okay, let's just put a 2x4 out, and can you walk across like a balance beam? And
got it all.
A lot of cool stuff like that, and I think
absolutely,
those kind of like
foundational
gyms, like those things that have kind of come out. It's type stuff. Like, we've had different birthday parties at those places and all that, and I think it's great.
Yeah, so cool.
But yeah, I mean, the need to get your kid in about. I mean, we did soccer. He had a good time.
It's always the number one for youth sport. They started as young as possible.
But it's like, man, I don't want to get him in. There's no travel stuff. There's no nothing. Like, let's just figure out what you like first. And I think, hockey up here is a big culture thing. And, by the time they can walk, they're in skates and trying to do all this. And it's like.
But just ice skating in general, though, for a kid is unbelievable.
Yeah, so like learning how to skate first before you're putting all the hockey stuff. Like we did a hockey day thing. We can go and try everything on, try to skate. It's like, well, our kid couldn't skate, so like, what's the point of being on this hockey? Yeah, so like, let's learn to skate. I remember, at Duluth, we have when I was there, we had a really good hockey team. They won a national title. All this, I was in. A lot of those guys were Phi Ed majors, so we'd be in different things. And we had a skating class, and obviously you had all these high level hockey players, these drafted kids, and all this. And a lot of them were always talking about like, I had skating coaches growing up that were like figure skating people, so it was more just, awareness while you're skating, different things, different balancing stuff, because you look at what some of these hockey guys can do in a game and it's just like, man, that's astounding. Like,
yeah,
what do that, and then they can do it on skates. And, my thing is I can skate well, I can do all that, backwards, doing all this, blah, 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 but like hockey stopping, like I'm not very good at it. And it's just amazing to me when somebody can just go out and just like,
they just do it.
Just kind of like really slow, and it's like, man, that's just not a skill that I've really ever been able to do well. And just stuff like that is like, I could practice that for days.
Well, in comparison, it's the same thing for like, you have a football guy that like you're asking him to do all these football skills, yet he doesn't know how to run. You know what I'm saying? Or change direction or make a cut or this or that, or use his body when it comes to throwing his hands up and catching a pass, like those things all translate.
I remember playing high school football, and it always made me mad because we had a very good team. We had a lot of great skill players, but every Tuesday, Wednesday, we did full-on tackling, and it was just injury after injury and after injury. And so you start 5-0, we end 5-7. It's like, well, what was the point of any of this tackling stuff? Why wasn't health put at the forefront? Or like, why are we crushing everybody every week to make them tougher? Okay, sure, there's something about like having that mindset at times, but it's like, man, every Tuesday, Wednesday was full live hitting. And it's like, we would have been so much better if we were in shells the whole time.
It's something, listen, it's what we talk about, with a lot of these guys that follow this, basically the Tony Holler model and, this sprint-based football where it is very, very light contact, right? It's very minimal, that stuff during the week because you just want everybody healthy on Friday night. And it's, we've had teams like, in the last 2 years, the roster they started with is the roster they finished with in the state championship health-wise, other than some other, freak bone break issues that have nothing to do with the health aspect, you know what I mean? Or sprinting or any of that kind of stuff. It's more of a base of that. Keep guys healthy.
On our team, I can remember the kids that were just going to hit you hard no matter what. Like they didn't even practice. They were going to
they just did it.
So it's like you knew those kids. So I was like, I don't need to try to go tackle these people. They're going to crush me, you know? So like, so it's like, I don't know. I think in high school, it's more about, because you are still developing. In college, sure, the top level, high level college stuff, yeah, sure, there's probably going to be some toughness, blah, blah, but also they have 120 people at their disposal at any point. So, I mean, it's a little bit different world, but I would say Indiana kind of made it a little bit more of at least like a forefront thing. Like, okay, we're going to make more of a point of health and shorter practices and, you know, less time here and so on and so forth, because you'll get so much more out of them on game day. And so that's why, like, in championships for us in track, like, it's really some pointed workouts, but it's like, man, we just had a big double meet weekend here, or a 2-day meet. You guys ran 2 to 4 to, you know, 2, 3, 4 events over 2 days. You know, Monday is going to be more of a general strength. Let's just get in and do some circuits and that kind of stuff. We might hit it on Tuesday a little bit, but then we are going to be in the pool. We're going to be prepping, and then it's pre-meet, and we're meet. You know, we have a meet again. So it's like I had 27 weeks leading up to this to get you ready to roll. Now it's all about just you being healthy, because what's the point of you being at nationals if you're all taped up? But there's schools in our conference that, you know, by the time they get to conference,
crushing those guys.
Be here. You know, none of these kids are going to matter on this list because they're all injured.
Right.
And then what did you know? Oh, I made these kids tougher. Like, I don't.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Not tough at all, but you run hard and you run fast, then cool, you know? Like, we just can't run you as much then, you know?
And it seems so logical, right? But it really isn't. It's, you know, we talk about it all the time about how, like, you kind of coach the way you were coached, and the style of coaching across the board when it comes to sports used to be that disciplined, militant, do this, you know, and don't question any of that. And guys are very timid, I guess, to go away from that, since even majority of parents view coaching as it should be a certain type of way, or whatever. The players coach sometimes has almost a negative context, as if, like, you know, you're just like rubbing elbows and we're out here, like, you know, we're friends and all those kind of things. So guys are timid to do that. Also, you know, when something's new or innovative, or, you know, nobody's done it before in the limelight, guys are they're unwilling to do it or take that risk, because everybody's so worried about what it looks like, job security, you know, you got pressure from parents, administrators, you know, the history of the program or what it used to be, right? But if
Now,
they're not educated either on it. So, like, research, like, I think one of the big things that's tough for sport-based coaches versus, you know, obviously track coaches, which that is your sport, which is speed and running. The tough part for them is they have so much time. They got to focus on the sport aspect of it, right? Getting ready for a game, that they probably research that to death, right? Like, just like you're going to research to death hurdles, you know, sprinting, right? You're going to research that stuff to death. You're going to figure out what you think works, what doesn't, and you'll experiment a certain amount, right? I think football coaches or any sport coach does that same exact thing within their sport. What happens is, because running is such a big part of almost every sport, they don't spend a lot of time researching that. And what happens is they kind of think lifting and I'll just sprint them will get them enough to where they're going to be functional, and kind of let the stuff they learn in their sport take over. And that works there is an extent that works for them. But what happens is the best teams, those coaches are making sure either they are doing it or they have someone that is knowledgeable in that area doing it.
Fair. And that's perfect. I mean, our sport of track is it's physiology. Like, you have to kind of have that backing. You have to understand that stuff, because that's what we're trying to do. There's certain people that don't. There's many people that don't. And those might be more the motivator one or whatever. Like, there's certainly a split. Like, there's coaches that are very successful in track and field that don't know a whole lot, but they can motivate the heck out of you, and they can get you to run through the wall. You might be doing some crazy stuff, but you run fast because you're going to do it because you're motivated. And there's other ones that try to be they're very, very dry personalities, and they try to be too technical and do all this, but then you don't get any motivation, you don't get any drive.
Correct.
So, and, you know, I think in team sports, there's a lot of other stuff. There's the X's and O's, there's plays, there's scouting, blah, 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 all this stuff. So, you know, that's when, okay, we'll worry about all this conditioning stuff, when we get our strength coach to come. But it's like, well, yeah, you just crushed him for 2 hours though in practice or something, you know? So,
Right.
so I don't know, like,
Exactly.
and especially in college, like the tournament thing still works, but you know, kids can just transfer now whenever they want. So it's like you
Yep.
also have to conform to the new nature of it, because you see a lot of successful coaches in the old setup. And I'm not saying Saban wouldn't have been great at it, but he was a very tough coach and all this kind of stuff. But they couldn't transfer as easily back then either, you know. So you had a little bit more control over that. And whether or not it's good or bad or whatever you think, it's the nature of it. So if you want to keep your job, you want to keep having success, then
Right.
there's some sort of a conforming to that.
And that's going to the high school level now too, as well. So where, in certain states, I mean, it's coming to our state too, in New Jersey. But
Mhm.
like in certain states, guys can, like Florida, that a football player could play here
Yep.
1 year and be over
Shit,
there
next week he could go. So he could be the next week he could
Right.
be at someplace else.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially
So there does become a balancing act there on what's that?
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say that's also with, like, you know, the IMGs and the Montverdes of the
Right.
world and all
Right. Right.
go from
There's-
private school to school and all this kind of stuff, or boarding school, whatever it is, you know. And
Something to be said for that.
yeah, and it's like, you know, it's still funny though. Like, you know, we've had some of the USA track and field classes at the IMG Academy and stuff, and it's like, okay, like you go down, and it's like you watch football teams and all this and all that, but then you see a lot of kids walk around like, man, parents are paying a lot of money for you to be here, and it's like
You're not
just
getting everything.
do this back home in your other gym, you know, like. So whether or not it's good
Well,
or
a
bad,
great
it's,
coach can be a great coach anywhere, right?
yeah, it's more eye opening as far as like, you know, what people just assume is going to help their kid, and it might,
Right.
you know, sure, sending them there, and it might change the mindset and just being around more elite people, but I guess it's kind of the old Rocky thing, like, you know, Rocky's in the middle of the woods in the, you know, training, and
Right.
you know, the Drago is doing all the sophisticated science stuff, and it's like, you know, sometimes that stuff matters, yes, but man, you don't need much to be a successful track coach, and the more and more crap you get, it's just kind of like, okay, I got to try to work this in somewhere, and it's like, I could just do this
Right.
the other
Got to
way.
use it. I got to use it now because I have it.
Yeah, so
That's a great point, by the way. That you can
Sometimes
get
it's
caught up.
over information and over, you know what I mean? It's almost like, oh, it's overkill, right? Because now you're throwing so much into it and
Just
you're
being-
looking at so many things where literally the simplicity of it is really what it comes down to. And if that foundation isn't there, it doesn't matter how many bells and whistles you
I think
have.
the bells and whistles are variables too, right, Derek? Like they're you can use them as a variable. That's what I think a lot of them end up becoming. Like
added
It shouldn't
thing.
be the staple. It's just something that you add on to it, or
it's
you
a
can,
variable, yeah.
or like Coach was
stimulate
saying,
something.
if you have to have this, and then we get to this, right? Like I look at
Right.
so many quarterbacks want to be able to be the Patrick Mahomes and throw across your body and do all of these things that literally only Patrick Mahomes can do. Yet that's
Yeah.
where you want to start practice, or you want to start your workout doing these things. But again, but you can't throw a simple 5-yard hitch, like
You
things
can't
like
hold
that.
the lunge
Right.
for
Or the
30 seconds.
mechanics, like you talked
You
about
know,
it, Coach. Like if
any of that stuff. Well, and again, I mean, at that level, like the Mahomes, they have, you know, private performance coaches that are putting him through the ringer as far as being able to do all these biomotor ability type things.
Right.
So then you can do the crazy stuff, you know?
correct. Like, but at some point he's still like he had to master this before he got to that. You know what I'm saying? Or some guys like you'll never get there, right? Just because it's just what it is. Like he's the
and
the
you know,
under 1% of what it is. But
and I don't know
because
I don't
that's
know
what
how
we see the
serious
most
it
of.
is, like
It's
the baby
difficult.
Gronk guy, you know, that
Oh,
he'll post a training video and it's just like, what are you doing? You know, like you're doing these weird box jump things where you're in this deep lunge and it doesn't look right and nothing's right, but it's like, you know, we're getting after it today. It's like, okay, it sounds good.
right.
This is-
But you got,
Well, the
but you got
accumulation
a
of
million
work.
likes and you went
It's more-
viral, right? Like so
It's
you're
more
good.
that like when Baby Gronk is pretty good at some things. I just think it's more the fact that this kid is always working, and a lot of kids are not. And eventually, as other kids start to work at that level,
you could also find hundreds of
it
kids
evens
that
out. Yes.
that can, whatever he's doing way better, you know? And
Correct.
I look like, even like I think some of the most amazing athletes are like elite level soccer players, you know, with just
Yep.
how they're controlling the ball and while they're doing all these crazy physical moves and just the amount of discipline they need to be able to put their bodies in certain areas and this and that, you know. And then it's like, you know, when Ronaldo had that ridiculous header where he was like so far off the ground and all this, then they're like, well, this guy could be a 7'9", 7'10" high jumper. It's like, well, no, But in a game scenario, and when he needed to load up and do it, he can jump really high. But that doesn't mean he's going to just be a high jumper per se, you know?
Right.
So it's just really interesting.
And on the other end of that, coach, like I say the same thing with some of my athletes. I'm like, you know, like a guy will come in the weight room and this guy's broad jumping or he's whatever. And I say, yeah, he's a great shorts and t-shirt guy. Right. But when you put him in a helmet and shoulder pads, like it doesn't correlate. It doesn't translate. It just doesn't go. You know,
some of our best kids that I've ever had, you know, D2 record holders, you know, we had some hurdlers that were the best hurdlers across all divisions at one point, you know, some of the testing stuff, like they don't even like doing. It's just like, well, I'd rather hurdle.
I just want to play. Yeah. I just want to go run my race, you know, like
go focus on some stuff because, you know, a standing long jump will only tell you one thing, like how far you can standing long jump, you know, how much power you might have. Sure. But yeah, so I think it's good to have norms and see progression over time, but just because I don't even remember who it was, but the random dude at the combine that one year that jumped like 12 feet or something in the standing long jump.
Byron Jones. Yeah.
Right. So I couldn't tell you if he's ever made great plays. I have no idea, but
but you know, he did that.
Well, there's actually a theory on it. So he actually started out very good early in his career and had a bunch of injuries. And he just came because he's retired. He's from where I went to college, UConn.
Okay.
So where I played ball. So he just came out with a whole thing that he said what's done in the NFL strength and conditioning space ended up hurting his longevity as an athlete, and that he should have stuck with kind of some of the outside stuff that he did, meaning like one leg development. Like he was a very springy guy, and he went really heavy into like trying to be durable by lifting, and it actually worked. Again, he said he came in. What's crazy is he said he could barely jump now. All the injuries. Which is wild, right? The all-time record holder in the broad.
Yeah, it's just completely deteriorated what he was already good at, you know. And
right.
I think that's classic. Well, in the NFL strength world, it's like if you are there and you start injuring people, like you're just fired. So it's like sometimes it's like you need to do stuff to keep them healthy and ready to go. And maybe so there's a mindset shift now because you can't just go and squat the heck out of these kids and do lifting and then like, oh, now I'm sore and now I get banged up on the field because I'm just crushed in the weight room all the time. Like, I don't know. It's weird.
That was Tom Brady's big thing. Like he got fined in the end of his career a lot because he was doing
his own thing.
Yeah. He had a guy that he thought helped him. And that was actually a source of his conflict with him and Belichick in the end too.
Yeah, because Belichick's a big team guy. We're all going to do this together type of stuff. We had this conversation yesterday with
I think at the NFL and even college to a certain extent, and I think they're doing it more. They're doing it a lot more, but you do really have to individualize the development portion. The team portion is what you do on the field, right? The plays. But I think you're starting to see that like you got to individualize what they're doing. To a certain extent, and if you can't, I think you have to have someone you could recommend if they don't have someone themselves, which probably most of them do at the higher levels. But if they don't, you say, hey, listen, I have something. Like I think you have to have it in your back pocket because the last thing I think an NFL team will want to be liable is like someone like Byron Jones turns around and say, hey, you cost me my career. Because they can make the actual research link to it. That's what everything I think is driving to a little bit with strength and conditioning and speed development is that people are trying to start to research some of these things more. Because for the longest time, all we had was really the Russian, East German stuff. And, you know, because those people were guinea pigs and they were shooting steroids in them and they were doing that's all you had to measure. You know what I mean?
But
right, they're literally guinea pigs. It's hard to take human beings in the United States and make them guinea pigs. You're going to probably have to pay them pretty good to do that.
Well, right. But also, it's just, you know, if you try to do that training exactly how it's written and you're not on roids, then you're just going to, it's not going to,
you're not going to make it.
Or that's not any of this stuff, you know, and there's a lot of old tainted records and all that in track because it is.
Oh, yeah. Like put the asterisk next to it.
Well, right. And it's, you know, because they're clearly having issues. And there's, I don't remember what it's called. Invictus, maybe. There was one where this amateur bike guy started doping, and he did this whole story on doping and bicycle in bike racing and all this kind of stuff. And it was very interesting because he's like, well, I doped, but I only got marginally better, and it's like, right. Okay, yes, the Tour de France people, there's a lot of doping and all this, but these guys are still ridiculous athletes, no matter what.
Correct. Right. Like take that away, they're still better than majority of the people that are still doing it.
Yeah. And so I think in a team sport, though, like in cycling, sure, you have to be biomechanically at your top, physiologically at your top, all these other things. Like I look at a guy like Adam Thielen, went here, he played football here at Minnesota State.
Stud. Look at his longevity. Like, look at that.
He's a great dude. When I first started working here, he was on the team and got to know him and kind of followed him through his combine process and his practice squad stuff. And I remember specifically because he was being trained by kind of afterwards by a guy that was, we had a coach's house and we were all young and we all lived in the same house. And it was one of those guys. And, what originally got him on the map, like he was a good football player here, but he wasn't like this odds on All-American, blah, 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 this kind of stuff. But I remember there was a 3-cone drill that he did that was really fast. It got on YouTube and that kind of started making waves. And then I remember it was all he had to do in his mind was run anything in the 4.5s and then he would get a chance. And so I remember he went to this regional combine. I don't think it instantaneously told him the 40. So he kind of had to wait for the results to come back in like an email or something. And then I remember he opened it, he saw 4.5 something and he was like, perfect. Like this is what I needed. I needed to be able to do this 3-cone thing. I need to be able to do this because when he actually got his opportunity, I remember it was they were playing at the U of M while they're building a new stadium. He blocks that punt, runs it back, all this kind of stuff. Okay, he's starting to catch some steam. Then for like 7 years straight, the dude never dropped a pass. Like it was just like you throw it anywhere near him and he'll catch it. And that's all he needed. He just needed hands. He's not the guy that's going to run past you in a post route or anything like that. He's just going to get to the spot or find the zone and he'll catch it. And when he turns around and runs, okay, cool. Like you're going to get caught maybe, or you might be able to have this or that because he's a 4.5 guy. But, I just look at him and once he got the opportunity to get to the league and, he might say something different, but it was like, as a Vikings fan, man, like that guy just caught everything. And it was because he was roommates. I remember they used to do training camp in Mankato on campus here. They did it for like 51 years. And I remember when he finally made the team, him and Cordero Patterson were roommates. And, there was all this stuff about how they were great friends. And Cordero was a first-round draft pick, this freak athlete, and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
Cordero dropped the ball. You dropped the ball. He wouldn't run the right routes and all this other stuff. And now all of a sudden Thielen comes and he's just like poof, poof, poof. And now Thielen's got better stats. He's got better because he's doing the game better. But if you're going to train those guys the same exact way, okay, Cordero's just a way better athlete, just with all the metrics. But Thielen always catch the ball. So it's just kind of an interesting conversation to have back and forth because the year that the Minneapolis Miracle year, like I just remember outside of the Diggs play at the end, like there were some insane catches, like hospital balls, throw them up, just whatever. Thielen just poop, 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 caught them all. And it was just like, man, that is it. Like you just had to get the opportunity to get there. And then you just have the surest hand. But it's Wes Welkers of the world. It's, that whole type of receiver that, again, physically, they're not the most gifted, but man, they can just play. So yeah, sometimes that gets clouded in the whole combine. They ran this, they ran that, they ran this. It's like, well, cool.
And try telling a high school kid, right? Like who doesn't run some of those numbers because that's but like, buddy, do you understand? There's like, first off, there's only like 20 of these guys that got invited to do this, right? And their times for you to compare your times as a 15, 16-year-old high school kid who may have not even hit puberty yet, dude. Like, that's a really hard conversation to have with them and to have with mom and dad who are in the comparison world of social media where they're seeing all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, what I need my, hey, I need my son to run a 4.4. Okay. Well, look, he runs a 5.2 right now to get to a impossible, right? So
I have a perfect example of that.
Don't want to be a dream killer, but let's work to this.
Well, you got to take the first steps before you could go to, you got
right. Well, right. And there's three guys actually. So CJ Ham just retired after 10 years. He was on our track team when I was at Augustana. So known CJ for a long time. And I remember asking him after he was done in Augustana, because he was a running back there, and he was a pretty good running back. But, he's like, well, I'm going to try to go to the NFL and chase the dream and this, that, and that. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, sweet. Well, hopefully it works out. You go to the regional combines, and it's like, as a fullback, you make total sense. You're just this big, bruising, bulking guy. Found the right spot, found the right setup. But it was never going to be as a running back. Same thing, Shane Zylstra. I think he's still on the Lions. Brandon Zylstra, his brother was on the Vikings and Carolina Panthers for a while. Zylstra played here. And I remember I was helping him with some just combine prep stuff. And, he was a great receiver here and all this. But, we were working on some 40 stuff, and I was timing him, and I was just like, we're at like 4.8, 4.7 here. Like, we don't have the wheels that you probably need, but he found a niche as a tight end, So it's like, you're tall, you got this. Speed's not as important, but you better learn how to block. You better learn how to do this. And then the last one, Trey Vavel, he was a cornerback for us, transferred in. He ran track for me. Vikings came down, the Bears came down to our dome, and he had to run the 40 at 8 a.m. And we were working on a bunch of stuff track-wise. He was a good kid. He ran 10.5 or something for us. And I was like, man, if you can run 4.40 something, he was a good cornerback. I was like, I bet you'll get a shot somewhere,
Right.
Ran 4.42 twice for those guys, and it was like, poof, that's your ticket.
You're like, thank you.
Made it to the Falcons camp and did all that kind of stuff. And now I think he was the rookie of the year in the CFL this last year for the Winnipeg team. What are they, Blue Bombers, I think? Is that the thing?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he was the rookie of the great special teams guy, great return guy. And I know he's trying to get his chance again, but to get the initial chance, he just had to run a fast 40. I don't even think they did any drilling or anything. Like
no measurables. Oh, he hit this number. Yeah. I mean, look, there's literally certain guys.
442. Yeah. So
right. We've seen like Power 4 coaches, right, at the highest of levels say, look, like, I don't care what he is. If he doesn't run this, I'm not even going to have, we're not even having a conversation here, right? Some guys take they put a lot into that basket.
There's merit to that. And if you're not one of those fast guys, then you got to figure out another way to try to get there, or you got to be sure really good in one other way. So the Thielen example, that guy, again, he just had sticky hands, man. He could catch anything. Yeah. So that's what kept him in the league for so long. It wasn't because he ran, super fast. But
it is so interesting.
Be the best at something. You got to be the best, literally the best at something or a couple things, I guess. It
is really interesting, though, how a lot of those guys, when it comes to the running aspect of it, go to a coach, a track coach, or someone who's literally like, hey, this is your expertise world. How do I run faster? How can you help me take what you know and coach me up on this aspect of the game that I've been so focused on catching a ball, reading defenses, doing the quote football stuff that this other physical aspect of it that kind of goes right past, I think, because there's no emphasis on it at the younger ages. Like, I'd love to go to a youth practice and see guys teach you guys how to run, right? So the football stuff will come later, but how do we worry about this stuff?
Well, I think it is a skill set to be able to run a good 40. And so, people that I know of, at least, like the Brian Kulas that work with Mahomes, or Les Spellman, who's got his whole group out in California, Mike Young with the Athletic Lab that he's created and all that on the more down, I think he's in North Carolina still, but those guys are actually putting out quality stuff for football guys to come and learn how to run a faster 40, and I'm sure Xavier Worthy and all these Chris Johnsons of the world, like all the 4.2 guys, I'm sure they could have ran 4.2 no matter what, but on the day consistently to be able to do that, to be able to get those chances, like, okay, like how many people that, they're going to run fast today and then they run like 4.40 or 4.50, and it's like,
and those guys are both track guys.
Well, I know they lose, like those types of kids, you'll lose millions of dollars because you didn't run a fast enough 40. So you better put a lot of time, because that's probably the one thing. Gosh, what receiver was it that he ran fast and then he was doing the drill where you look right, catch it left, catch it as you're running, and
gauntlet.
Yeah, he got shot right. You got ball right to the head because you looked the wrong way. That guy still. I think it was maybe Juju Schuster. I'm not sure who it was, but because he ran fast, he got the opportunity. Yeah, he got donked in the head, but it's like, okay, you just did this one thing wrong. That's teachable,
No, there's a
lot of things. Maybe the last thing I'll talk about is I always thought it was funny when you get these big, tall 6'8" guys, linemen, for football. So I'm just talking about like things that are just odd to me. And you got those tiny little chutes that are like 4 feet tall, and you're getting these guys to waddle through it and stuff. It's like I always looked at that. I'm just like, what are we doing? Like, you would never do that in a game. So like, why is this like the foundational thing for linemen to do is just go through these chutes, And it's like, even like the little run through and step through those, like, okay, like you can see that, or the running back running through the little hard cone things. Cool, that's contact, all this kind of stuff. But then it's like, you see certain things, it's like, that doesn't make any sense, I remember there was Andre Patterson. He was the D-line coach when they had all their camps here and everything, like in the last final years before they moved back to the Twin Cities for the Vikings. And, he made some behemoth sled that they had to like get underneath and push it up tall and all this. And it's like, okay, that makes total sense, because
Right.
that's what you do. But yeah, just some of the weird, like get low and waddle through this thing. I don't know. It just is weird to me. But
No,
you just got to fill time. If your head coach wants to be the tough guy, you got to fill time, You gotta
yeah. Well, I think that's what's changing, the efficiency part of. I think this is every sport too. Like, I mean, they're all trying to get to like, what can we do that's applicable to what we have to do playing wise as efficiently as possible, and then and develop them, and then obviously get them to be able to perform at their highest level. I look, I'm glad that Indiana won the championship, not just because obviously I think that's what he did is pretty amazing, but it kind of will open more eyes that there's another way to do things that might be more efficient. And it was kind of interesting because, part of James Franklin's firing at Penn State was a little bit, not just the alumni, but there was also a player, a lot of players was rumblings that his 3-hour practices were hurting them late in the year. You know what I mean? So like early in the year. So one of the things about that, and me and Derek have talked about this a lot. What is your goal to develop somebody within the season, right? Because there's a long season. There's a long season in track, college track in particular, right?
Yeah.
In football, it's a long season. In college, in high school, if you have a team that might be good enough to be a playoff run team, you have to have them better towards the end of the year, right? And there's a balancing act to that. But there are coaches that go so hard early, like meaning like summer, just crush guys. You watch them in week 1 and 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Like, woo! You watch them 7, 8, 9.
Then
That team is shot. You know what I mean? Like shot, maybe not even if they're not shot physically, they're shot mentally, right?
Definitely.
And it's very hard to get them to go to the next level. And I always thought that was a balancing act as a coach. I used to always, now listen, if you have I've coached bad teams and good teams, if I have a team that I'm just hoping every day we get a little bit better, we're not going to be there in the wins and losses area. You might be coaching that team a little bit differently, but when you have a team that you think can win,
yes, you got to learn toughness and how to do things and the right way to do things. But
right,
I mean, adaptation. The big part of adaptation, you stress. You have to rest to get the super compensate. You prepare yourself to be at a better level or more prepared the next time that stress comes. If you just stress and stress and stress and stress, good luck. It's not going to work out long term, like you said. And I think the big thing is load management these days in like the NBA. It's like, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. If you watch Anthony Edwards play, he plays at a high level, back to back. I would be pretty tired the next game too,
Absolutely. So no, I understand that.
Well, and then look at LeBron. The dude's still like dunking all over people at 40-some years old. It's like, yeah, there's some load management to that. Like we can't just, obviously there's a high talent level and all this kind of stuff, but to have longevity, man, you got to like treat yourself a little bit better. And that's why in track, I always say like the better and better you get, the less and less you have to race. And, because you notice it all the time, the kids that race a ton as like a senior and they're really good, and then they go post collegiate and they're running, or maybe they sign a contract and so on and so forth. Like it's tough because now you're training in a much smaller group. There's not as many opportunities to race. There's a lot of other things you have to do. And so it's just, my opinion is the better and better a kid gets, unless they really, really, really want to keep doing all these events, like we don't have to run as much, like you can hit a qualifier right away. We might take a week off from competing, maybe 2 weeks off of competing. Now we're focused on a bigger thing coming down later. Team sports is a little bit different. I get that, but man, if you only got like 16 games, it's different. But some of these pro seasons that are, 80, well, look at pitching. Pitching, they pitch every 5 days, and it's crazy if they go 3 days, so it's just like,
Right.
baseball kind of figured it out, like you're not just gonna...
Baseball has figured that out. It's funny because they have such a hard time. They're just starting to figure it out in the speed and strength conditioning world,
right.
But
right.
they have it. There's no doubt that one thing the managers, and that was kind of my point with where people understand the sport part, but they don't understand the other part, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
they understand pitching wise, like they understand we were wearing out arms in the 80s and 90s, right?
Well, right. And baseball is just a weird one because it's like strength conditioning, all this stuff, being faster, blah, blah, blah. But then you got CC Sabathia up there that's just going to strike you out no matter what,
Right.
Or Roger Clemens that's just going to...
Right.
Or I remember the Twins had this guy, they called him the Turtle, La Tortuga. He was their catcher, just this big old chunky guy running around and sprinting. It's like, well, yeah, he's a catcher. He just needs to stop the ball and throw it to second.
Correct.
That's all he has to do, so...
Pudge, Ivan Rodriguez, yep.
Well, and it's interesting because then you got the ones like Mike Trout and those that are like jacked and doing all this, but it's like, it's a weird sport because sometimes the ones that are the least fit are the ones that have the longevity. It's just kind of a weird sport, but
baseball is highly specialized.
Oh, 100%.
Like each
Very
position,
skill and disability.
Yes, exactly. Each position has a specific need. The only guy that probably has the two guys that probably have the most athletic need overall is probably your shortstop and your center fielder, right?
100%.
Because
they actually have
right. You got to cover the most ground.
If you're a first baseman, all you got to do is do the splits and catch a ball. Like that's
Correct.
Probably your one thing that you need to be good at. You got to have some flexibility and coordination.
Right.
You don't have to be able to sprint because you're just going to the bag and waiting for it to get thrown to you. And that could be some baseball guys probably pissed right now, but
no, but I think they recognize the specialization of it. I think you see it, and it's funny because in the strength conditioning space, they had a hard time figuring out. I remember when I don't remember if it was the Yankees or the Mets. I think it was
Yankees.
The Mets. It was Yankees that had the guys that were pulling hamstrings left and right because they had some guy doing like Nordics and crazy stuff on their hamstrings, and they were pulling. And the guy, I mean, they fired him like midway through the season. You know what I mean? Because they were like, we've never had more than one or two of these in the season. We got like 8, hamstring pulls.
Becoming a major issue now. So
right.
No, each sport, it's kind of fun just to have conversations and talk about it. Each sport is different, but then there just are some foundational things that every sport needs. But yeah, I just kind of summing our whole conversation. I think it's you just got to focus on the basics first. And honestly, the further and further I feel like somebody gets, the basics remain important no matter what. You internalize them, you're able to coordinate it faster and all this, but man, it's still good to go back and focus on some of those things and kind of reset each time. But
no doubt.
But
yeah, listen, fantastic stuff. I mean, you're so well versed, and it's great for us. Like one of the things, because there's so many, and we'll let you go because I don't want to hold you up any longer because you probably got actually important stuff within your sport.
Yeah, job stuff to do, but
job stuff to do. But it's really interesting because you have the emergence of all of these guys and speed and stuff, and they're credences to different things they're doing. But there's also when you talk to someone that's actually, coaching at a really high level, you understand the adaptations that you have to be able to do to get athletes to perform. And I think, that it fundamentally comes down back to that always within your sport, like being able to perform at your highest level when needed. And I think that's really, really some great points you brought up. And I think the last thing you said that was really, really so important. Like there's some guys that look great in workouts, and then when the gun goes off, like I always say this, like guys can factor everything they can, all the stuff, all the testing, and then when some guys are in a race and another, like Derek said before too, when someone is next to them, or someone's playing against them, they just can go to a
Mhm.
little higher level. And, like you could even say
Mhm.
that Usain Bolt, like what's the does Usain Bolt win by 10 meters every time? No, he's barely winning these races. He's also
Right.
able
Right.
to compete in a way that
Yeah.
allows him to win every time that is different than anybody else. There might be a
Yeah.
guy that they go through the metrics and all these different things might even be better than him. I would
Yeah.
say Asafa Powell, the difference between Asafa Powell and Usain Bolt is Usain Bolt, to me, was a slightly better competitor than Asafa Powell.
I mean, I think there's definitely some truth to that, and I think you finally, you found a guy that genetically and anthropometrically and all those things were just a tick above, maybe, but then it's just like he had to learn how to compete, and because that's the biggest thing, the stress of competition and all the prep leading up to it, and everybody's talking, especially social media, like that could delete a lot of things that you've done in practice, and so handling stress is a big part of it, and it takes some people a lot longer to figure it out, a lot more competitions to figure out. But man, when that you can finally kind of check the box of, okay, I can put this kid out there and they're going to do just fine every time, or they're going to be prepared, or they're going to at least put their best effort in. That's a huge win at times, because the bigger and bigger meets you go to, the less time you have with them before, because they got to go to the call, they got to go to clerking, they got to get out there, and so on and so forth. So it might be 45 minutes that I say the last thing to them, and then they're out there, and you're just kind of sitting in the stands going, well, hope it works out. Or I'm warming up the next kid for the next race, and I don't even watch the race,
Right.
So, yeah. But no, I appreciate you guys. This was a fun conversation for sure. It's good to just talk some shop every once in a while,
No,
Appreciate you,
doubt
Coach.
about it. Thanks so much for coming on, and we look forward to continuing to following you. And if there's ever anything you want to talk about in the future, like something comes up, something's on your mind, we'll get specific with you if you want to. So,
awesome.
No doubt about it.
Appreciate
Have a
it,
great
Coach.
day, Coach.
Yep. You guys too. Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
It's really, really interesting when you. One of the things I think it's, by the way, it's phenomenal that you got on, like, a track coach that's actually coaching this. He's a very successful coach, obviously, but like he's applying at a high level a lot of the conversational pieces that we discuss.
Yeah.
And so you can watch all the videos and all those kind of things. And I feel like everything is just, it's tools to put in your tool belt, right? Like if you could, like, we're going to go build a house, you're going to bring more tools than you actually need, because you might need something for this specific instance that didn't work out well. You have it, right?
Or the way, like, the specifics of this house, where it is, or this or that, is going to constitute, I need these tools to do
Right,
it.
the land it's
Right.
on, or whatever.
Like like, so in comparison, like, all right, this athlete has this, and this. All right, I'm going to need this, and this to get them to that. All right, this one, something very different. Now I need this, this. If you don't have that as a coach or as a builder, you're not going to be able to do the job to the best of your ability. You might be able to fake it, but 2 years down the road, when the house falls down because of whatever, right? Like, you have to have it in order to use it. I love that he focused on the foundational piece of it, no matter how high of a level you are, or at what level he gets them at. We're all still doing this, and we can look at this and improve this before we get to this, So I think that's a big piece and I think that correlates across all sports, irregardless of what you're specifically doing. And then your point to, it's not cookie cutter anymore of, hey, we're all working out this way, we're all doing this, that's great for an initial whatever
Foundation.
But the tighter and more specific you get, or the higher the level, the more individualized and specific it needs to be geared towards the actual athlete. And look, I get it. It's very hard to do that in a sport like football, where there's a big roster and there's a lot of guys, and at the younger levels where you don't have as many assistants or just personnel that are able to do those things. And to go to his point, where that's great, we all might be doing it, but are we really doing it? right? Like, are you really giving that full-blown execution effort on every individual lift or whatever, where somebody's watching you and can critique you and can help you, or, you know, you're giving max effort, right? Those are the types of things that I think get lost in the wayside, because it's all right, well, they all did the workout, we're good, but okay, now we've all done the workout and we're still 5-5 because they're just kind of going through the motions, or I don't have the ability to critique or do the, or to, you know, evaluate and then kind of move forward, right? I think that's where you're kind of starts to split hairs, but I think that's what it takes, right? And the good ones can really do that. And, you know, I think that's an important part for a lot of coaches to understand. Like, that's great that you had 40 guys in the weight room, but only 10 of them actually got after it, where the other ones are just going through the motion and checking a box that they're there. That's not going to help your improvement, you know?
That's the other thing that's also very,
and that takes time.
Very hard to get kids to understand that. Like, that's where I think the less is more in a certain extent. Like, okay, you know, we don't need to do 5 sets of squats. Okay, let's get 2 sets that are really good after your warm up. If 2 sets that are really good sets, like high output, if you can measure it, great. Like, you know, with an OVR or a perch or whatever they have,
right?
Whatever. But if you can, I think that's where the measurement helps coaches. If you can't watch all the guys at once, you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, I could see what your output is, and I could see that there's 2, you gave me 2 great sets, okay? Now, there are some kids that can give you 3 great sets. There are some, you know, but, like, you need to know, you got to give me, first you got to give me 1 great set before you give me 2 great set. Like,
yep.
And I think one of the things that we get ahead of, and I had to learn this, I'm sure, like this stuff has helped me a lot, is when working with kids and understanding this, but you got to get to for 1 great set first, right? Like, if you jog through 1 set of squat, like, meaning you go half-ass in it, you half-ass the second set, you half-ass the third set, you didn't do anything but get yourself
put all those half-asses together and you're not doing shit.
You didn't do anything.
Like, don't even, like, you're wasting not only your time, our time, the team's time. Like,
and if you're tired, let's say you come and you're tired, like a kid says, you know, I'm kind of shot today. All right, listen, give me 1 set of each thing. Good 1 set. You're out of here. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so you can, that's a way of modifying the workout. Like, you know, they come in in the spring, you're going to deal with this probably all the time, right? A kid does track, he does baseball or whatever, like, you know, or they burned themselves outside at something else, and they come in and they're like, you could see it, you know what I mean? And if you force feed them 4 sets of squat, I don't even know what you guys do, but let's say you force feed them 4 sets of squat, right? And that kid you might as well not even have him there. He's going to be a problem to begin with. All right, can you give me a good, like, one?
It is a good gauge to kind of understand what type of kid you're working with, right? Because, like, you know, you have that as the kid does that shit as a freshman, you kind of check him on it, and then all of a sudden, as he progresses through, by the time he's a senior, he's telling other guys, buddy, you got to do another set, or hey, you didn't do it, like, you got to do it this way, right?
And scaling
Correct.
is a big
and then when you get that player-led team, that's when you're cooking with gas. You know what I'm saying? But that all takes time. It's a culture thing, right?
And the hardest thing is everything should be the same. So I hear this all the time, and I agree with it to a certain extent. Like, you know, I want everybody to be treated similarly. That's not true. You're not treating everybody the same.
What is it? Everybody gets treated equal,
fairly,
but not everybody.
equally.
Right. Yep. Or everybody gets treated equally, but not everybody gets treated the same. Right. Everybody gets treated fairly, but not everybody gets treated, like, right. Like, look, I heard a coach gave it me this one time. He said, buddy, like, if Emmett Smith, you'll like that because it's Emmett Smith falls asleep in a meeting, I walk over there, I wake him up. If the 3rd string running back falls asleep in a meeting, well, grab your shit, you're gone.
It's an important point,
but you have to earn that right to sleep. You know, like,
yeah, and I think, look, you have that, you obviously,
but not that the greatest guys like Evan Smith are ever sleeping in a meeting. You know what I'm saying? Because they're just
Lawrence Taylor did. Lawrence Taylor.
Listen, there's some outside factors that were warranted why he was sleeping.
Right. I think I think you got to That is the hardest part for a coach, right? Like,
Right.
listen,
Because look,
when you're
I know this guy. Like, I know we need this guy to win games, but is he doing everything that I'm asking right? Like, probably not. So some of the other guys, well, he doesn't do it that way.
I think great
But they
athletes
also
manage
understand, like,
too.
we need that in order to win, right? Like, so there's some give and take that has to be. That's why, again, go back to what we talk about. You don't set rules, it's standards, and you can't put that stuff on there if you're not gonna hold it to it. So, hey man, you didn't make 4 lifts this week, you're not playing, right? Like, now when a
Star
guy
player
you
doesn't
need
make
doesn't do it, now you're holding now what do you do? Right? Now who
What-
are you? What's that look? Because kids see all of that shit, dude. Like,
I
they don't
think
miss a
that's
beat.
absolutely. And you know, the
Hey, dad, so and so doesn't go to every workout, like, but he's the starter. I go to every workout, but I don't start. Like
I never
there's
say it's funny. And you're right. Like I'll
it's
say
a fucking hard world to live in, dude.
I never tell anybody that they have to be there, but I will say, are we committed or are we not committed?
Strongly or strong? You're
Well, I say,
strongly
are we
encouraged.
committed? Are we committed? So
Right.
now someone
Because those guys are doing it.
this group is committed. Now
You aspire to
let's
catch
ask this
touchdowns
question.
and score touchdowns and start and do all this other stuff. Well, guess what? The guy that's doing all of that, he's here.
He's here. When your stars are doing everything you need, you're in great shape.
Oh, you're money in the bank. Best example I had of that is obviously like Liam Anderson, right? Like 3-sport kid, like he was just the guy, right? Like all American boy. Like, hey, when your best player is your hardest worker and all those shit, like you're cooking with gas. And I'm sure you can't, like, maybe you've had 10 in your entire career that are kind of like that, programmed like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you're very fortunate. A lot of guys you see with all of that talent and should be that aren't that because they've gotten away with doing minimal work and still succeeding at a high level. They've always been the best player, irregardless of how strong they are or how they do these other things, right? So they're just natural. Like, they've just been really good, which that's where that kid needs to get taken out of that little comfort zone of dominating their local area, just being whatever, go to one of these bigger things where there's kids from all over. They get a little humbled, like, oh shit. That's why adjustment to year 1 post high school playing is a big adjustment for guys. And a lot of guys can't handle not being the guy because they've always been, right? Now, oh, I got to work a little more, or I got to push a little bit because I used to be able to be the best not doing any of this. Now, all of a sudden, I'm not the best. Maybe I should do this. Well, yeah. You know, that adjustment's hard for a lot of kids. And parents. Like, what do you mean my kid's not starting? Well, no one starts as a freshman unless you're, you know what I mean? Like, but if you've never been exposed to any of that other things, like, you know, hey, why do I go to this camp and the coach isn't talking to me? Well, dude, like, they don't even know who you are. Go separate yourself. Or now's where you need that extra boost of, hey, like, I thought I was good. And it's not that you can't get to where that is, but you have to put the work in. And are you willing to do that?
Don't tell me you want to be a great athlete if you're not doing the things necessary to be a great athlete. And that doesn't mean
no
you need to run 50 100s. It means the things that are required to be good at whatever your position or sport is.
And it's very specific.
Right. If you're a baseball player and you want to be the best hitter you can, you're going to have to take a certain amount of swings correctly in order to get good at hitting a baseball. Right? You're going to have to see you're going to have them throw a certain amount of curveballs to you. You're going to have them throw a certain amount of sliders to you. You have to have them throw a certain amount of fastballs.
You can't just sit here and do the bare minimum
and hope it's going to happen.
Be on that next level. That's not how this works.
If you succeed, otherwise, if you succeed that week and you didn't do it, it's just luck. You got lucky.
Right. And I think Greg Olson said it the best. The worst thing in the world is his kids go to a weekend baseball tournament after not having done anything all week and they go 3 for 3, right? He's like, oh, well, now it just showed that they don't have to do shit and they can still be successful. Now you go to that baseball tournament, you go 0 for 3 after not doing anything. Hey, did you take any swings this week? No. Well, there you go. There's the direct correlation. But it's funny how sports work like that. Sometimes like you can get away with it, but consistency is key. And I think that's really what it comes down to.
Are you consistently and then
anybody can do something one time, buddy.
And I do think like the other thing you have to train yourself to do is to become a good competitor. That is not easy. Some people it comes natural. Okay.
Oh yeah.
The very best athletes, there's a good amount of it that's natural. And then there's also their willingness to train themselves and put themselves in tough situations as a competitor where they have to overcome something to become better.
Or are you the guy that shies away from competition and, hey, you know you're slow, so you won't run track because people are going to beat you, rather than, hey, I'm going to get better and I'm going to do this, right? Like I've seen that example a lot of guys that just don't want that smoke.
Right. And my thing is this, okay, listen.
Or humble yourself and go play another sport where you're not the best player.
You're a certain level of speed and you're not as good as you're worried about being embarrassed. Put yourself in the back heat to start so you can compete against guys of similar level.
Levels, man. Levels.
Don't have this false pride.
I'm going to race Power 4 Division I camp. Go to a lower level camp
and do well where you're at.
Do well and get more reps.
And you go to next time you go.
Then you go to the next one. There's stages to this, but everybody just wants to think like, hey,
let me go here.
I gotta go to Oregon and I gotta do it. No, man. Go to this one, see how you do. Okay, now we have some foundation of where do we stack up? Where am I aligning? Right? Maybe I always think guys get the bad rap too. Like maybe some guys just don't want to do that. They just don't want to go to that world. They want to play. You know what I mean? And look, it's a low number, but some guys want to just go D3. Right?
That's okay.
What the hell's wrong with that?
You dominate where you're at.
Dominate where you're. It's the same thing with like jobs, right?
Yeah, I'm better than the majority of people I'm playing against. Let me up my level. But if you up your level beyond
too soon,
or too much in that next stage, you got to keep upping it. You know what I'm saying? Michael Jordan first had to make the team. Okay,
dude, he got cut.
Right, first had to make the team. He couldn't become the Michael Jordan we watched by saying, I can't even make the team. Now I can't make the team, but I'm going to go to an AAU national tournament and dominate them. No, first I got to make the team.
Yes.
Then I got to become the best player on that team.
Absolutely.
Now I can go try to be the best player in the county or the state. Then I can go play guys want to jump to national. And this is a little bit like some of the things
that's like, hey, I've never played rec ball, but I'm going to go join this ultra town, or I don't even start on my high school football team, but I'm going to go join this all-star whatever and become, and try and do this or try and do that. It's like, man, what are we talking about here? Like it's really, to me, like you said, there has to be levels to it. The understanding and self-awareness, you'll never know that if you only stay within your own little nook or cranny or, you know what I mean, like area type of thing. If you never expose yourself to that different level of competition or guys that just think different, right? I mean,
I said this will make you laugh because one day you'll be at this point, and you might remember when you played Little League. So Little League, okay, usually have two age groups in there together, right? Two age groups. Like you're the younger, the one time. This used to be this way.
Fifth, sixth grade, seventh, eighth grade, third, fourth grade. Like
this is how football was for us when we were growing up. Okay.
And now
when you were the younger one,
you kind of got a little
ass kicked. It was travel ball for you because you're playing against better kids and older kids than you.
Right.
Then the next year you're the older, you have a certain level of dominate. Then you step up again.
And then it's a recheck.
Older than you.
How have I gotten better? Have I gotten better? Right.
Little League does that naturally. So people are so now. Listen, when you go up, let's say I can't remember what the ages are, but let's say it's 5th and 6th, right? So let's say fifth and sixth, fifth grade, you played pretty well, but you weren't the best. Sixth grade, you went out and you dominated. Okay. Now, if you just played Little League, I'm just saying, next year you go back down, next year you dominate. If all of a sudden you come in and you're the youngest person and you are so dominant, then you could say, you know what, I'm dominant, even though I'm younger, I probably should play at a higher level of ball. I should go certain travel levels because I'm beyond this. Because if I go play it the next year when I'm in my age group and I was already dominating younger, it's probably not going to be that much fun because I'm not able to push myself. I'm way better, right?
Absolutely.
So you could stage it that way. But like, what has happened with the same age group thing, and I saw it this year with my son with basketball. Okay, he was younger and there was an older group, and he got that stage development. When you're at the same age all the time, you get a skewed look as to how good you are because
right.
Okay, I'm dominant here.
You just don't understand that there's other things out there.
You could probably just literally play at first above age if you're dominating. But if you dominate, like I said, if you dominate guys older than you, okay, then you could say, okay, I'll play same age group, higher level. Because I'm better than locally the kids that are a year older than me.
No doubt.
Then I can play higher. Now, if you're still like, oh my God, if I play against older kids, they're still quite a bit better than me, or I still am not near not at the top, then you're probably fine just doing that upstage, downstage thing. And then that will get your development. But once you get to a point where if you do play up and in that your fifth, sixth grade, and you're a fifth grader and you're way better than everybody that's a sixth grader, then yes, now to me, that's what club was. You know what? You really are way better than everybody. Okay. Like when I was in eighth grade, I was definitely ready for high school. I was way better than everybody. Okay. And it happened because partially puberty for me, I was working out, but part of it was puberty. Like I went from I was a very good player as a football player, but like I was never better than kids older than me. All of a sudden, eighth grade, I was like, dude, they're 17-year-old kids. I'm much better than. Like, and part of that was puberty. Like, that's the other thing people don't realize. Like, some people, they get that juice, man. And I don't mean like juice from steroids. I mean that man juice.
Changes.
Like, there are some dudes that like go from scrawny, like, wow. Like, I can tell you, like personally, I was like. There was a lot of kids that were as good as me. A lot of kids. I was very good, but a lot of kids were as good as me. And all of a sudden, the man juice kicked in, and I was willing to work out, so that helped me. And that coupled together, it was like, whoa, nobody's close. Like, how did this
changer?
And now it doesn't happen. Now, the kid who gets the man juice, and it doesn't help him. Like, he all of a sudden isn't that much. Now that kid's got to realize I got to work, dude. Like I hit puberty.
It has to be tied to it.
My genetics is a little limited. I've got to figure out how to work to get myself there, right? And staging that competition is a big deal because you can help a kid become a much better competitor in the long run. Tom Brady's another good example. Dude, he was on a horrible team. He was the quarterback. If he was all of a sudden to say, I'm going to go to Don Bosco, like he barely started as a freshman on a terrible team.
Right.
He would not have become Tom Brady because he would have been discouraged. He would have went there and been like, whoa.
And I think even that, like you surround yourself with certain players and certain like-minded people and coaches that are, see something different, right? That's a big part too. Coaches are so quick to write a guy off or to just even sometimes guys don't even understand that the little things that they say on a daily basis could send a kid off into a world of who knows? You know what I mean? Look, we have Georgia on monthly for a reason to talk about the mental side of things, and to understand what they're going through at that time. And then, you throw that into it of, yeah, well, even if it's in fun or a joking manner, that a lot of ways coaches are, like, there's still always some truth to it. And you know what? They take it
Agreed.
as Bible. And that could really take a kid from, hey, like, and it works on the other end of it too, right? Where you just continuously pump a kid, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're constantly like, hey man, great job. Like, keep
You're not
working, do
you're
your
doing him a
thing.
disservice.
If you're lying to them, but when you do see it and they are developing and they're taking those steps, and then it's, you see the improvement, they now, hey, did you just see where you've come from? And now wildfire, right? Like, this is a guy, now this guy becomes a guy. You know what I'm saying? Just because you put that little bit of extra effort into his development and helping him through that wall or through those tough times of, like, I'm always here, buddy. Like, let's kind of work this together. Now you just see, you have guys that are totally bought in to not just the program or the standard, but they're bought into you as an individual, and whatever you say is what they're going to do. And as long as those guys that are telling them what to do have the right mindset too, of, this is not about, it's about the kid and development of that person, male, female, whatever, the athlete. Now we're good, right? Where I think a lot of guys do it for themselves. Like, I have this player going here, right? Like, it's not about you, man. Like, it's about the development of a kid on and off the field, because most of our guys aren't going to the next level or aren't going to be in the NFL, right? Like, this is a blip in their life. Explain and help them set themselves up to be better in the long term, right? Not just so he can make a couple tackles or score a couple touchdowns for you in the next 2 years.
Great point. And what I noticed with Coach, by the way, he's coached 3 Olympians. He didn't say one thing. He didn't say,
he ain't talking about them.
He really focused.
Barely even talked about him, right? And
right.
You're talking a guy that did what was it, the decathlon? Like, that shit's insane.
I looked up what he scored. He scored 6,080 in college.
I don't know any of that. I don't know what any of that means.
I know at 27 years old, I scored 6,500 as a 27-year-old. But I was, I was, and I could have been better. I think I could have been close to an 8,000 point score if I did track. 9,000 wins the Olympics, 8,000 qualifies.
It's just wild.
Yeah. So it's to give you an idea how good those guys are. Like they're like a 9,000 point Olympian who wins the decathlon. He's probably running the 100 in like 10.2, 10.3, and then still running the 400 in like 46, pole vaulting 16 feet, like.
Well, he said, like, right? What did he say? I had to learn how to pole vault.
Yes. Throwing the shot, like,
it's amazing, dude.
Yeah. He's probably high jump at 7 feet. So well-rounded. It's not just their speed and but they have to be able to jump. They have to be explosive. I always thought decathletes, when I noticed, a lot of times I see this in college, a lot of these guys that are decathletes do very well as a coach, because they're like quarterbacks in football, in the sense that, like, they have to know everything, a little bit of everything that's going on, right, in order to succeed. Like, you
have to have an understanding of every event. Even every if it's event, not
some rudimentary understanding, right?
Right. And like you said, I did a little bit of it in high school, and then I was kind of a little self-taught because the coaches didn't really understand. Like, do they even do that in high school? Like, they don't even do that in high school, do they?
Exactly. So there was no those things. Like, my father had me in the pentathlon in high school, and I would do all those things. But I have to say, like, if you're a football player, if you're a football player and you actually were a decathlete, you'll be a very well-rounded football player. There's no doubt about it, because you'll be able to throw far, jump high, run fast. Like, those are guys that would
all the components that kind of go into it.
That would be like what you would see like your safeties do, your linebackers, your tight ends. They would be good at that. Your running backs are obviously going to be 100-meter dash guys, like your wide receivers are probably going to be 100-meter dash guys or hurdlers, But yeah, it's very interesting. I thought he was really, really good from that standpoint. So it was good overall. And it's funny because I'm down this rabbit hole. So there's a lot of really interesting things, and everybody's competing for that space, like that,
Right.
Buy my program type of thing. And it's great to talk to a track coach who's like, okay, yeah, like even on the 1080 machine versus T Apex, I'm sure he's gonna love it, but he already knows, like, it's a tool. You know what I'm saying? We're not doing this every day.
Of it. Right.
We're not doing this every day, but it's sold as you're going to do it every day.
Correct.
And I think any coach that buys it and says, hey, every day I'm doing a T8, well, you'll realize pretty quickly each machine costs $4,000. How are you going to train when you have 10 athletes there? You're going to wait 10 minutes for each person to get through their rep and put the belt on and put this on and put that on. Like, there's a practicality to it. Now, if you're working one-on-one with people, dude, it's a home run. Like, it'd be or two people at a time. There's no doubt that's honestly the thing you should have, because you can actually do some very focused things. But if you're like rolling in 20 people into a session and you buy a T Apex, like, I don't even know if you're going to be able to use it, like, so it's like at a college situation, you could buy, football teams are buying 15 of them. You know what I mean?
Well,
in high school, how many can you buy in high school? One?
You can't. You're lucky you maybe get one, maybe.
Yeah. So then you're like, well, who's going to use it? Like, which kid are you going to?
Correct.
Which kid's going to use it? You'd have to stage it out, which is tough to do. Like, so it's really a much more, the tools are important, but it's overall. And anyway, but yeah, one things I have noticed, and I'll let you go on this, is that we're learning to do single leg stuff, that foundational stuff, like not just two-legged. I think you gotta learn how to balance.
We do single leg squats with our leg up on the bench, and
I love it.
One leg, or lunges, even lunges, I think, add to it. We do, look, part of the warm up every day is that dot mat progression, and it's one foot, whatever. Look, same with even within the warm up, like the ladder aspect of it has a one-legged component going through the ladder. Like, we do a shit ton of it, and that's the stuff that I always felt like that's where, like, more of those plyometric type of movements, right, is always where I think that's been my forte in regards to weight room and workout type stuff, bench, squat, all that stuff. But like those types of things, I feel like almost like the warm up aspect of it is where, like, I've been able to, I think, kind of elevate myself in terms of that, and let those other guys handle, your Olympic lifts and all that other kind of shit. But like some of that supplemental stuff, just because of, like, I don't know whether it's because for the majority of the time I've coached a skill position, or because for me personally, like, the agility aspect was a better part of my game than the other stuff. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just, I felt like I feel like I've been able to make the most headway and progress and help guys more so in that world than your traditional, power lifts or whatever that type of stuff is. I feel like that's kind of been the forte of it, and I really enjoy that aspect of it, right? Those guys that, like Coach said, the coordination aspect of it, of like, hey man, can you go through the ladder and I can toss you a tennis ball as you're going through it, and can you still make, like, that type of stuff, I think is where, especially for, what I'm asking receivers or DBs to do, that adds more of an element to it. Rather than just like, hey, every kid can go through the ladder now. Like, shit, it's unbelievable. But can you jump rope? Like, you know what I mean? Can you do jumping jacks, like, together? Like, that's the funny stuff that I'm like, wow.
Right. Or can you listen, the old school laying on your back, lift your feet off the ground 6 inches.
Leg lifts?
Well, what they're kind of finding is, because the hips have a large part in generating force and power, and it's in particular your hip flexor, and then attached to your core, which comes around the whole spine. So they're finding that those kind of exercises are actually really, really critical. So I remember we talked about some of these accidental innovations, right? Like these, like football coaches accidentally innovated in that, which came from the gym class. Okay. Like the gym class, you were doing those things. You were doing burpees, which develops that whole aspect, right? The only thing that would be different now is you'd say, okay, we want to do the burpees explosively, not like leisurely, right? We want to do we want to hold it for 6 inches, literally actually at 6 inches or 12 inches, because we're going to get the benefits of that, not lazily doing it where your knees are up or something like that. So we get the benefits of it, but we're more precisionally focused. But the actual drill really has a large part of the foundation for the body before you even get to lifting, because what happens is you probably learned this. I think I learned this. Like, man, I definitely threw too much weight on the squat rack before my body was ready for it. You know what I'm saying?
And that was always the thing growing up, was like our coaches would not allow us in that weight room until we were in 8th grade. Right. And that was a kind of a whole, guys were trying to push the envelope a little bit of like, hey, can we get in here as 7th graders? When you get on that 7th and 8th grade middle school team, but it was no, we're not doing that here. Right. But don't worry, when you get here, you're going to be in it. Right. And it's going to be an important factor. But until we get there, no, you're not coming in here. You're not lift. Now, look, you want to go to Gold's Gym or Olympus Gym or one of these whatever with dad and do some shit, that's on you, right? I'm not gonna be able to tell you what to do, but
they should. I think
it's changed a little bit now, Dave. 100%.
I think we should go back to some of the old phys ed stuff, which was I asked my kid all the time.
That's a whole different,
because it was
guys can't even do push-ups, man.
Well, that's my point. Okay, so kids will and that might have been your kind of your point back in the day with kids not going away with me. But one of the things that are happening is,
well, they didn't know how to gear it towards that, though, right, Dave? We didn't know how to gear a workout towards a kid, towards a 6th, 7th grader, right? We didn't know how to kind of babysit that. We only knew how the kids lifted in high school, so I think they didn't know any different.
You should start the stage. So, when the old physical fitness test, right?
Oh God!
You staged how many push-ups you did and pull-ups over the course of years, right? And I'm just talking. This is a very basic drill,
right?
But it was good in the sense that it gave you guidance in phys ed as to certain things that you had to develop in those kids each year that had to get done, and you could measure that. I mean, what is the physical fitness test other than rank, record, and publish? Okay, which we went away from in phys ed. The only reason that some of the stuff that is becoming wildly popular is because we took away record, rank, and publish in the schools. We took it away.
We didn't want anybody to feel a certain way.
Correct. Now, maybe they made the mistake of saying, hey, if you can only do 1 push-up this year, your goal should be 2 at the physical. They didn't do that. That's probably the negative to what was going on. Is they just said, here's the standard. They didn't say if you were 1 push-up and you couldn't get to 10, which let's say was the standard, how do you get to 2 for next year? How do you get to 3 the following year? Okay, to get there. What happened was it was still rigid in the sense that you just never got there. So that was it, but we threw it out. We threw the baby out with the bathwater is basically my point. We didn't have to throw it all out. You know what I mean? We need to tweak it so it applied for overall development.
Because that would now take another level of prepping and work, right? Teachers contractually, no, I'm not doing that. This is cookie cutter. And if they can't do it, they can't do it. I'm not going to gear it towards where I feel look, you have regular English, honors English, AP English. Why don't we do that with phys ed?
Agreed.
I don't know how you gear it, how you metric, whatever it is, how you fit them into that. But you know what? Why can't you do that?
I think you're 100% right. I think it would have just that alone, Derek, would have a gigantic impact. Like what you just said casually, that would have a gigantic, the number one impact.
Scale it.
Improving fitness.
Hey, this kid's a 3-sport athlete. Okay, so you know what? Like, he's in AP gym.
Correct. Stop putting him in gym with
Right.
people who don't want to get the ball banged into
People
them.
that literally like just, hey, I want to sit on the side.
Yeah, like those people need to.
And I'm
learn
sorry,
how to do
guess
all
what? Like,
push-ups.
give me that lower level phys ed class, and I
I
guarantee
would
you,
love
like,
that.
at least those guys, they'll like to walk around the gym, and I'll get them to do a bunch of laps. And guess what? They'll probably want to be in the higher level class by the end of the semester. But that's me. That's my approach to things. That's how I do
think
it.
you're
And I
100%
want that.
right.
I want those guys too. Like, give me that, right? Like, give me the BD room, the behavior disorder kids, and I guarantee you, like, you're not going to see them in your office anymore, because that's just what it is, you know. But
That's a really great point. We'll leave it on that, because phys ed, you scale it from that standpoint, you will get.
think about your dad walking into a phys ed class today. He'd lose his mind.
In the end, and this was 20 years ago, he was saying it was like him and somebody else were like the last.
When I was in school, was like, that's where it started to all change, dude. Like, all of it.
Right.
Like,
yes. Yeah. Right. Because that was his last few years. It was starting to change.
Here's the bare minimum. All you have to do is change, right? Okay. Then, all right, we don't even have to change. You just got to make sure you have rubber sole shoes so you don't screw up the gym floor. Then it was, all right, well, just show up. Like, now it's literally like, okay, well, here's this option. Here's this option. Here's that option. You're good. Do you want to opt out? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Meanwhile, you have Texas producing, rhetoric on how amazing it is to have a sports specific class within the building. Like, they just did a whole study on it with data to back it, about how 88% of Texas high school students talk about having that sports specific period as being a benefit to them. Even the kids that aren't in sports, because it gives them a period to do their clubs or meet with teachers or do whatever, just the benefit of it. It's a good article on Football Scoop.
Go send that to me, because
yeah, dude, it's awesome. I sent it to every administrator I know.
How about this? So you want to know where the problem all stems from? So when I went to get my master's in phys ed, which they changed the program and they wouldn't grandfather me in, they added 15 credits to it. It was ridiculous. I was at Columbia,
right? Because you had to do more of a science background.
I was like, how are you not?
Right?
I was 3 credits away, Derek. 30 credits it was. I was at 20 or 4. I was at 26. Okay, and they said, yeah, you have to finish. And I was doing it part-time, you know what I'm saying? So they say you have to finish by this semester, otherwise you're not. I said I won't be able to finish by then. So they didn't grandfather me, and they added 15 credits to it. I said, fuck it, I'm done with this. But the biggest theme was, this was the theme in Columbia, and I used to push back, and I used to have huge disagreements with the head of the department, and he was, my professor in a couple classes. Huge disagreements, and he respected me because I just didn't, back down it. His whole thing was that phys ed should not have any level of sport base to it, and I said that's ridiculous. I said it's ridiculous because you're trying to figure out what a person who hates phys ed wants to do. What about the other 90%? Okay, so we should cater to a person who doesn't like phys ed and figure out what they need to do. Which, to your point, that would be phys ed 101, right? Figure out how to get them more healthier. Maybe it's walking. Maybe it's doing.
It could be the smallest little thing.
But the high end, the athlete, the kid who really wants to be in phys ed, okay, we're just going to make it boring for them and horrible for them, and they can't get better. Like, why are we wasting?
They just have to sit in the shit and the misery of being in a class with like half these kids that want to do absolutely nothing
for 45, whatever is 40 minutes.
So you're doing what to you're taking my high level whatever and you're pulling it down.
And they're not going to want, those are the guys who are going to be your phys ed teachers and go and do phys ed as a major. Who's going to do phys ed as a major? They are, those kids. So, and that argument, and then believe me, because Columbia, I didn't know it at the time because I was too young. It was so leftist, obviously, but I didn't know it as well. Like I was, I didn't realize how leftist it was because I was just in a class. I didn't realize it was infiltrating into education. I just thought it was a conversational thing.
No,
which
you're
I
like,
now
oh, this is everything.
yeah, this is everything. But it was literally embedded in the conversation all the time. And the
Brutal.
other people would tell me that I was this brute athlete
Right.
that just wanted to make kids that were not as athletic feel bad. And I was like, that's not it at all. Look, was it right how they did it in the 50s where they razzed the kid who couldn't climb the ladder? No.
Yeah, but there's also something to be said, because I literally just had this conversation because
Yeah.
I got to see Warren's wife's team played our girls in the first round of the short conference basketball tournament yesterday. So
Okay.
I saw her and we were talking pregame, and she's like, man, it's just kids are just so different that they've the ones that have that killer instinct of like, I don't like that person I'm playing against because I want to beat them, have been like ostracized because they have that, right? Whether it's male, female, whatever. And they've been made to feel like they're different because they want to win, because they have that mentality. That's bad, right? And it's like, really? Because back when we were there, that's what it took to win. And that's how every high level athlete or just most competitors playing sports were, right? Like you just wanted to do that stuff. So it was a pretty good conversation about like that whole aspect of it, and how it's just like that group has been kind of, made to feel a certain type of way because they have that mentality of like, I don't want to be friends with my opponent. I just want to beat them. Like,
absolutely.
it's why we have a nation of like, okay being okays, right? Like everybody's as good with a C+. Like, all right.
Yeah, I would even say it's a B now. The C+ is now a B.
Yeah.
Everyone gets a B.
Because we've made it easier. Everybody gets a B.
No one doesn't get a B. There's
Right.
nobody.
Because that would require one more level of paperwork.
There's no way, unless the kid is really just a J off, you know what I'm saying?
Correct.
You're probably going to fail that kid anyway, right?
Right. And the amount of paperwork and things that you have to do to fail somebody. Did you call home? What? It's a 17-year-old kid.
Is that what they do now? I mean, I don't know.
What steps did you take to make sure that this kid didn't fail? So like when they do absolutely nothing, right? Like, did you go and help them, ask them why? Did you communicate? Did you do everything you could possibly think of to basically like, here's the paper, here's the answers, here's your grade. You know what I mean? Like, not that there's any initiative on that side of it. Like,
right.
Like, hey, thanks for asking, but I still am not going to do it. Right. So like now that falls on you. Come on now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
interesting world, buddy.
That's interesting. I didn't even know that. Thank you. I learned a lot today.
Coach Breaker tomorrow morning. We're on par. So I'm going to text him and call him 1,000 times today to make sure he's good to go.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully he gets there and it'll be great. So
sounds good.
All right, man. Have a great day.
Later.
Later.